Hello there, and welcome to Beer Blather 275. Hysteria is no policy. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the most pathetic show on earth. This week, Iran announced that it has enough enriched uranium and that it is buying supplies for 300 missiles from China. Shoigu, the incredibly surviving Minister of Defense in the Russian Federation, went to North Korea to get more cannon fodder with parasitosis, and Russia launched a missile campaign against Ukraine. As missile parts fell in Kiev, fires broke out in at least six districts, with reports of one death and 20 injured. In other parts of Ukraine, there were Russian drone attacks in Ternopil, creating partial blackouts, and smaller scale impacts elsewhere as well. The Ruskyis aim to strike civilian infrastructure and residential areas as usual in many locations to create the illusion of a large scale attack. They use ballistic and cruise missiles launched from the surviving strategic bombers. Black Sea Fleet launched Kalibr cruise missiles from as far as possible, and Iranian drones. At the same time, the Russian army attacked frontline settlements with glide bombs, destroying the city administration building in Kherson. Not particularly affected, Ukrainians struck Iskander missile launchers in the Bryansk region as they were preparing to attack Kiev, destroying one launch system, seriously damaging two. At the same time, Ukraine launched simultaneous missile and drone attacks in the occupied Crimea and in Russia. The Ilevo air base was attacked yet again. It's a habit forming, hitting the dwindling supply of bombers. In Engels, the fuel depot storing fuel for strategic bombers was struck again, as was the Moscow suburb of Podolsk, and more fuel depots were struck in Bryansk, together with an Iskander missile warehouse. One can say the Russian terrible payback was short a few installments, and Putin ended up taking in as much as he was dishing out. Israel found another tunnel with weapons and sophisticated communications equipment under the European hospital. You don't say. And killed a few more terrorists. And ICE stepped on the gas. And the big, beautiful bill is going towards approval. But all you hear about is the Trump Musk brawl. Hysteria, Uber alles, lest you concentrate on what matters. This is Sol Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from my perch in Virginia. And right there is Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War One flamethrowers, from ground zero of bullshit. The place where the governor says, I can't and I won't ensure the safety of law enforcement officers. And if you send the National Guard to do that job, you're a Martian. Well, I have bad news for the son of a bitch. The National Guard is on your way, Thomas. Just make sure you don't go to I don't know, coffee shop anywhere near where Mexicans, pro-Palestinians, and the assassins of the SEIU are provoking what will no doubtly be a reaction they will cherish for years to come. How is it going, Thomas?
Well, my city is 98% Mexican, and these are all legal Mexicans, and they've built themselves really good lives. There are no crapped up houses and dead cars in yards and anything like that. Interestingly, there were 20 years ago, there was far more than there are now. So the people here I mean, they still vote Democrat. This is a Democrat district, but they're opposed to illegal immigration. And I encourage the Democrats to keep doing what they're doing because it's pure madness. The footage of people waving Mexican flags as they set things on fire. This is, I mean, talk about jacking up support for Trump and Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security and Tom Homan and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's an amazing time we live in where we're watching the total collapse in real time of one of our two major political parties. And there's no sign of them regaining their senses anytime soon. It's an amazing era to live in. And like you said, people were concentrating on the Trump-Musk feud. It's already over. Musk is backtracked on his threats to. I mean, he said he was not going to sell any. He was not going to use SpaceX to help the U.S. Well, who else is he going to use it for? And he deleted his Trump was found in the Epstein files tweet. Nobody's found in the Epstein files. The Epstein files doesn't have any list, any photo of anybody who went to Epstein Island and engaged in illegal activity. That's not what the Epstein files have.
No, I don't want to be too facetious about this, but you don't need to be a rocket scientist to realize that if there was anything of value against conservatives in the Epstein files, whatever they are, the Biden administration would have used it against Trump or anybody else. It is
Well,
asinine to think they would have it and not use it.
Ghislaine Maxwell wouldn't be in prison if there was anything in if she had any dirt on anyone. I mean, she was, by all accounts, she's lost her marbles being in prison, and she was going to do anything to stay out of prison. She went on the run for months.
For months. And
So
finally they find it, it's like, okay, fuck it. And she was in her mansion in New York,
yeah,
just
and
walking about
yeah.
and
So
waiting for the inevitable. But that was because anywhere she went, they were waiting for her.
if she had anything, if she had a little black book or whatever, she would have used it. It never would have
She'd
gotten to
be
the
living in Epstein Island right now.
exactly. There's no there. Everybody who's enraged that the list of perverts and look, there's a segment of our side that is way too interested in underage girls, and they mask it with this, oh, I want to prevent this, and it's like, then why do you want to know all the details? Why do you want to see the photos?
Voyeurism.
Well, I mean,
They're
okay,
voyeurs. They like watching. With any luck, there is pictures of nubile teenagers there. Oink,
no,
oink.
I would go a step further and say that it's vicarious living, because currently we live in a culture where adult on adult pornography has never been available, and for people who consume this, especially on a daily basis, eventually they're no longer titillated by vanilla, and so there's people have weird fetishes, but they begin their adult life with fetishes. You don't gradually become interested in BDSM, You don't gradually become interested in some of the more disgusting practices. But what does happen is you start being interested in younger and younger and younger and younger people. And Epstein's called a pedophile. He wasn't a pedophile. He was a I always get the two mixed up. It's a phebophile and hebophile. One is somebody who's interested in pubescent people, and the other is somebody who's interested in post-pubescent but under 18 people. And that was Epstein. He was interested in 16 and 17-year-olds.
Or 22, as long as they look 17.
Yeah, and this notion that okay, I mean, the Salvadoran, the man, the husband and father from Maryland or Missouri,
Garcia Abrego.
Right. It turns out he was a child trafficker, and
yes,
we all know what happens.
We knew that.
Well, now it's being reported by the Attorney General, and what happens to a large percentage of those children is horrible, and it's very specific. And
what happens to those traffickers in federal prison is of such a nature that they can never walk a straight line again.
Well, I mean, a lot of them don't even survive.
Bingo.
But the stuff that happens in our society, it's a relative. There's a ton of people who are titillated by the idea of Epstein Island, but they don't collect images. They don't collect illegal images. They certainly don't carry out illegal actions. The number of people in this country who carry out illegal actions is still relatively small, despite everything. It's not the widespread pandemic that some people on our side make you think. The whatever it was, the pizza factory that had
Pizzagate, give me a break.
Exactly.
All of the 4chan bullshit. I mean,
didn't that all go back to what was it called? QAnon?
QAnon, yes.
Yeah. So the people who are involved in all that, I would say a majority of them, there's an element of titillation, because you wouldn't be that foaming at the mouth, that fanatic,
Methinks they protest too much.
Exactly. And the reality of it is, when you see an old guy like that coach with that 75-year-old coach with his 23-year-old girlfriend, it's gross. And I don't see why anyone would want to see, clandestine video of Bill Clinton with anybody, regardless of her age. There was a notorious fake photo put out that claimed to be, something that, but it was phony. And Bill Clinton today, I mean, Bill Clinton is aging absolutely dramatically. He's not long for this world, I don't think.
So would you, if you went home to Hillary every day?
I don't think they've seen each other in several years. I don't even know where they live.
I think they have, because there is no other explanation for the accelerated aging of Clinton.
Well, okay, he led a very riotous life where he drank and did all sorts of things, and he ended up with that terrible heart condition that had to be fixed, and he claimed he became a vegan, but by that time he's got the look that my parents had. My parents had this certain ashy, wrinkled, ill look for a good 3 years before they got their official diagnosis. And my brother and I knew that they were very, very ill. And Bill Clinton has that quality. He's not, and his voice is almost gone. He sounds like Biden sometimes. But I just, okay, there's so much that's going on. In a certain sense, I'm sure the Trump administration is grateful that so many people are concentrating on his feud with Musk, so that all this other stuff can be, it can be done.
Notice one thing. In 2020, we lost our throats calling for the federal government to send the National Guard to stop vandalism and lawlessness across the country. Now we have a situation in Los Angeles where vandalism and lawlessness started this afternoon. And by evening, you have the federal government taking control of the National Guard in California and sending 2,000 troops to start. I think they're going to have to send more to start, bugging some SEIU heads and some pro-Palestinian heads and kick some Mexicans back to Mexico with their Mexican flags and all. And it took less than a day.
Well, think about it too. There was protests and burning and vandalism and all of that.
They started a couple of fires too. You know what that means in Southern California.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, in comparison to 2020 or 1992, is that when you had the great arson and diaper looting riots? Was that
the big one is 2020? We did have in 2017, January and February riots all across the country, but they were short-lived.
Yeah.
It was the summer of 2020 that we had a constant barrage of vandalism and disorder.
But see, that was
close to 50 people dead because they didn't just vandalize statues, you see.
Yeah, and it was 50 black people killed by other black people. What made, okay, that was a different period, even though it was only in 2020. That was in the age of pre, and I'll just say it because it's all over social media, black fatigue. The title, the phrase black fatigue was coined in 2020 by a black author claiming that blacks living in America were fatigued by the institutionalized racism and the horrors of living here. And the phrase was recently taken over by conservatives, meaning fatigue of behavior that you see in videos all the time. And so 2020 was a different era where all these idiots, they thought that George Floyd had been murdered. And they thought that because they were told that. This time around, okay, since George Floyd, there's been like 15 attempts to create new George Floyds, and including some guy who was shot 92 times. And
well, at one point the cops ran out of bullets. What do you want?
And nobody gave a crap. Nobody gave a crap.
They never did.
So this will blow over, especially since the National Guard. I mean, the fact that Trump called in the National Guard immediately shows that the zeitgeist has changed.
That's a bag of ice. Number one, Trump has nothing to lose.
Yep.
It's not a question, and by the contrary, he has something to lose if he doesn't stop this shit cold.
Mhm.
If we go into the midterms with the country in disarray and protests and vandalism and riots, then people may vote against the protests, the vandalism, and the riots, and it may cost us the House and the Senate. But
Well, okay.
if this is nipped in the bud, it's no danger, and we sail to keeping the House and the Senate.
Well, it's possible. I would say here and now that anybody who thinks who disapproves of the chaos voting for the people who are causing the chaos, that just shows how stupid the American voter is. So, um,
Like P.T. Barnum famously said, nobody ever lost a dime betting against the stupidity of the American people.
yeah, and although you could very well be right, my own opinion is that the zeitgeist is different now, and
I think it is different, yes. I
some
agree with you.
okay, Twitter is it's a barometer of how Americans feel, as far as I can tell. And I saw another street interview, and it was a young woman. She was marching against all the rights that had been taken away, and the interviewer asked her, "What rights have been taken away?" So she stuttered, and then she said, "Well, it's so broad that I get so emotional thinking about it that I can't even name one." And it was like, okay,
Wake
Matt,
me up when you do.
yeah, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, and you're also pathetic. And there's nobody. The only people who agree with you are the handful of people out there who are doing what you do. There was
Yeah,
a
but you said the zeitgeist has changed. Using Marxian lexicon just to show off, the objective conditions are not the same. Let's face it, this is not Trump in 2020. He's learned a few things since. This is not the situation in which he is preparing for re-election immediately. He does. There are no elections for 3.5 years, and he won't be in it anyhow. This is the time where he can be himself and do it. And if you like it, fine. And if you don't like it, up yours, buddy. And people like Newsom have picked the wrong time to poke the bear.
well,
This is the wrong time to do this.
he's making all these threats against the federal government. He has no cards when it comes to the federal government. He's saying that,
Oh,
that California is going to stop paying its taxes. Who gives a shit?
no, wait. California doesn't fucking pay taxes. Never did, never will. The state of California doesn't pay taxes. No state pays taxes. How can you withhold taxes you don't pay?
Okay, fees, I guess.
Californians pay taxes directly to the federal government, but there's nothing the state can do to stop that. I mean, really, these big pronunciations based on what? Nothing. What is he gonna do? Default on the payment of the 20 billion he got for COVID? He already defaulted on that payment. He's already not paid back federal money that he should have. So what is he gonna do now? Not pay the money he's not paying? Newsom
Okay,
is a moron, among other things.
all right. California Budget and Policy Center. California pays more to the feds than what it gets back.
Not the state of California.
Let's see. Hold on.
Californians pay more taxes than than the federal government pays the state of California in grants and other bullshit.
Okay, yeah.
California is a donor country, but it has nothing to do with any action by the state of California, let alone gruesome.
Okay, he's talking about he's conflating the state with individuals,
Right.
and there isn't a single sane Californian who's going to not pay their. I mean, the when I pay my federal taxes, it goes directly to the feds. It doesn't go through
Yes,
California.
from your bank account or the escrow account straight into the treasury. California does not collect taxes for the federal government, does not pay taxes to the federal government, and can do nothing in the relationship, much less the tax relationship, between you and the federal government.
No, no. So I have no
It's an
idea.
imbecile.
No, Newsom's running for president, and he's like AOC. Like they have absolutely no idea they're going to get butchered. Newsom is already running to the middle during the primary, which is suicidal when it comes to Democrats. You're supposed to run to the right or the left and play to the base, and then when you in the general, then you go to the middle. So Newsom's doing it backwards. Newsom is an idiot. Newsom
Yeah,
is alienating his own base before the general election,
right.
and
And somebody told him that if he makes a stand now, but making a stand now is not giving him any cookie points.
no. I mean, Newsom
Well,
Newsom
it's handing them
is
a defeat.
he's a clown, and I remember he debated DeSantis on whatever channel it was, and DeSantis ended the debate by holding up the human feces map that San Francisco had.
Yes,
It's
I remember that.
the app that shows you where all the feces is. And Newsom had no reaction other than to go, and it was like, Gavin, you're laughing? I don't know. I just, Californians boggle my mind because they're Californians are proud of being jerks, and they've now become proud of being pig-headed know-nothings, and that's just a generalization of leftist Californians, and it again. I saw some guy. He's got an Armenian last name, but he was on a campus here, and this horrifying mutant came up, and every time this guy was trying to interview college students, this mutant would get between them, but eventually the mutant assaulted the guy and was immediately arrested. And it turned out that the mutant was a professor. The mutant looked like it was the mutant identified itself as trans, meaning male to female, but it was ageless. It looked like it was about 17 years old. It had long hair. It had man boobs, and it was just it couldn't resist violence. It had no answers to any question. Whenever it was asked a question, it would just repeat the question. So this is the best they have to offer. I mean, people talk about black fatigue. I think the country has trans fatigue, at least trans activist fatigue.
I have bullshit exhaustion. Does that count?
Yeah, it covers everything basically.
Yeah, because all of these things that you mentioned, which you are correct, the country's tired of all of these reverse racism bullshit. You're correct, but it's more than that. I mean, if it was a revolution of crap in politics, in music, in culture. We are tired of the universities as centers of indoctrination for neo-Marxism. I think everybody's tired. I don't think that Harvard or Princeton or Columbia can appeal to the greater population anymore now.
Well, also, if you go back in our history, I was watching something, and it went into this long sort of diatribe about all the organized attacks against Black Americans, and it was all Democrats who did this. You know, from the Reconstruction era all the way up
Yep.
to the civil rights. It was all Democrats, and the Democrats say
Yeah.
today that the Republicans and the Democrats have switched, and all those Democrats
Bullshit.
were actually Republicans. That's not true at all. They were
That's not
staunch
true.
Democrats. They shared all the ideals of today's Democrats, including racism, um, and violence. Racism and violence. That's
Robert Byrd died, the oldest KKK Grand Kahuna, as a Democrat in the Senate. So don't give me any shit about switching.
no. It's the tie between Democrats and violence. Um, the Confederacy was Democrats. It wasn't
Yes,
Republicans,
yes,
and they started a civil war. Their response to legislation they didn't like was to start a war.
yep. And then, of course, eh, after massive fraud in the 1876 election, they forced a deal whereby they allowed the elected Republican to assume office, albeit 3 months later, if Reconstruction was ended. So Reconstruction was ended, and we went straight into Jim Crow laws and the KKK, which was again the fucking Democrats. And today they're now different. Instead of losing the KKK on the streets, they lose the Sturmabteilung. They lose the Acorn slash ACIU, SEIU rabble rousers onto the general populace and burn stores and start fires and
Well,
harass people.
the Los Angeles PD is the most experienced diffusers of pipe bombs in all of the United States. And this is a staunch blue part of California. Um,
Yeah,
During the early to mid 1970s, we had at least one, sometimes multiple pipe bombings daily in the United States, and it was all leftists. It was every single one was leftists. So the response to anything they don't like. Okay, we were talking about Colombia. The guy running for president in Colombia was just assassinated.
yeah, the conservative running in opposition to Petro.
He was just assassinated on camera. Um, and okay, he's technically alive, but I think they're going to unplug him. He took
Uh,
multiple shots to the head. Um,
like I said in our private conversation, the brain is allergic to lead.
yeah,
A couple of slugs in the back of the head and it slides out. It is, how can I say, it is lovely that they're trying to save him. I hope they can, but I fear they won't be able to.
I think it's unlikely. The footage shows that I mean, you could see the impact of the bullets in his head, and you know,
It's lights out. I mean, you can have a bullet, coming through here and lodge on the side of your brain. I've known of a case of a bullet lodged inside the brain that they couldn't get out, and the guy lived for 20 years like that. But when the bullet is through the occipital region, a couple of slugs in there, no, there is no saving the poor man. His name, Uribe, is known to Colombians. His grandfather was president of Colombia, a conservative, and this guy was like the conservative luminary. And we know what communist dictators and terrorists do with opposition with possibilities. They eliminate the opposition, thereby eliminating the possibilities. And that's exactly what this terrorist asshole, president of Colombia, is just done. And it was him. I have no doubt.
and it's we're coming close to an era in which you'll never be able to get away with that. The assassination attempts on President Trump backfired completely,
Yeah.
especially given the reaction by the Democrats.
Yeah. Eh, by the way, I'm not sure that I disagree because I don't understand if you make it valid elsewhere. In the US, yes, you're absolutely right. In places like Venezuela, Colombia, no. This actually puts the fear of God into anybody with responsibility towards family, for instance, who
Yeah,
wants to be in the opposition, and they essentially walk out of the game, exile themselves in Spain, and go fuck yourself.
well, yeah, that's why I said we're approaching. I think with the advent of social media, I just checked it out all on Twitter, and it's very different from 40, 50 years ago. It will take, okay, the Colombians, you have Colombian mercenaries working for the cartels in Mexico.
Yep,
I mean, one man's
they're forming joint ventures.
mercenary is another man's active duty soldier. So,
Yep.
um, it's there's some places, Chile was. I remember when it was held up as a prime example of how Latin America could save itself, and then it said,
Yes.
you know what? We have things going too well. We're gonna fuck up everything all over again. So they did.
I'm not. I don't want to say this, but I will. When people were holding up Chile as a model of how South America could save itself, all they could hear from me is, "You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. This is their 15 minutes of rest. Then they're gonna come back to usual." And they
Well,
did. They were saying this while the president was the niece of Salvador fucking Allende.
mhm.
It was only a matter of time before the whole thing came to shit.
Latin America has a reversion clause where the fatalism in the Catholic Church in the Catholic Church in Latin America is different from the Catholic Church in the
Very.
United States, but the notion in Latin America is that you have the rich people who have all the money and everybody else is poor and they need everything to be free, and a good government gives everything away free and taxes the hell out of or just takes the wealth from the wealthy.
Mhm.
Okay, Saudi Arabia did a brilliant job of dealing with the danger of a reversion clause for extremely backward Islam. Turkey, when Ataturk secularized the country, he killed the clerics and he did it all by force. and that guaranteed that someday there would be a reversion clause. And at some point, Erdogan was elected, and Turkey went down the toilet. But Saudi Arabia, under the Saudi system, you can be whatever you want, including a secular non-believer, and you can talk about it. You can, and anybody who attacks anybody else for their beliefs, they get the sword on the neck, and you have to do that. People complain about the Saudis. The Saudis need to have an absolutist monarchy for a while, probably not forever, but for a while, as they go through this period of change, which is going to be a long time. And in Latin America, I don't know. Okay, the Saudis who run the country are all educated overseas. In Latin America, I don't know how they're going to save themselves.
The technocrats are educated overseas, but that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Um, you know that and this is an interesting thing because I can be totally hopeless about South America, and I am. I think that South America is Dante's Inferno, and that on the arrival gates at the airports, they should have signs, lasciate ogni speranza voi che entrate, abandon all hope to enter here, because I don't think there is an ice cream chance in hell that those brutish, superstitious, ignorant assholes will ever amount to anything other than cannon fodder. That said, things happen. And all of a sudden, you have a libertarian as president of Argentina. Who would have thunk? I thought that was impossible. Apparently, it wasn't impossible. I still believe that without a sufficient network, maybe his days are counted. But so far, he seems to be holding steady. I hope he does. I am actually working on a meeting in Florida to put together Milei Novoa in Ecuador, Bukele. And by the way, and you know from our private conversations even, that Bukele is no saint of my devotion. These are not perfect people, but they're different. And they are out of the mold of South American medievalism. So maybe, just maybe, in Paraguay, there is also a light movement. So maybe uh, there's enough of them. Let's see if anything can be done. But I'm
Well,
not going to go crazy and claim victory.
how often did Obama and Biden have the president of El Salvador in the Oval Office?
Come to think of it, I don't think they ever did.
Exactly. Trump, a Saudi Arabian political analyst, said that Trump's greatest brilliance is that he has a bilateral relationship with every country on earth, regardless of how small or unimportant they are. And I think that's true. And he also is fearless, like when he had the South African president in the Oval Office and showed him the video, and the Democrats said it was the worst moment in American diplomatic history. It's like, really? I could think of 100,000 worst moments in American diplomatic history.
How about the withdrawal from Afghanistan?
Exactly.
How was that for American diplomacy?
Or how about our refusal to take Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany?
What's that? Yeah, Roosevelt's courageous approach to banning Jews from the U.S.
Yeah,
He sounded more like fucking Goebbels. Eh,
yeah. No, I
what
mean,
a triumph of American diplomacy. Uh, no, we have had our dark moments, no question about that. Uh, but somehow we seem to bounce every time.
yeah, yeah.
I
No,
find
I
it
mean,
interesting.
okay, people are all horrified about the big beautiful bill, and it's been mischaracterized by almost everybody. And if you actually know anything about it, you know that it's no such thing. It isn't. I mean, Elon Musk, we can't read his mind, but it's likely that he was pissed off because he didn't get his electric vehicle mandate, and he didn't get his subsidies, and
He didn't get his solar subsidies. He was upset. He actually said this in one of those unguarded tweets. He said that the big, beautiful bill, which we can discuss in detail, uh, kept all of the subsidies for oil but eliminated subsidies for solar. Ah, I see. That's your fucking problem. What is Elon's solar energy companies going to do without subsidies? Other than fold, that is.
also the petroleum industry is vital to American national security.
Yes.
Under Biden, the U.S. military proudly announced it's going to have electric. I mean, I don't think they went as far as having electric tanks.
They announced that, yes, yes, they did. They were that stupid.
Yeah. So,
Painful.
and even with the subsidies, as you pointed out, the year 2020 was an appalling year for the petroleum industry. All of them, except for one, all the big ones, lost billions. And
Collectively, they lost more than 100 billion.
yeah, and if you go down to net profits, everybody talks about gross profits. That doesn't mean anything. You have to look at net profits. And the oil industry is, their profit margin is minuscule compared to other, yeah, about 4% compared to other fields. And this whole notion, okay, especially now, this whole notion that the internal combustion engine is going to destroy the planet. Greta Thunberg gave up
Bullshit.
on Greta Thunberg gave up on climate change and switched
Well,
over to supporting
she,
Hamas.
she found that attacking Jews was far more profitable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, cars the cars of today, the internal combustion engine for cars today bears no resemblance to what it did in the 1970s. You
No.
know, and they're just going to keep getting better and better and better and better. And soon you're going to have
Anybody who thinks that we have reached the limits of combustion engines doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about.
no,
Yes,
no,
they are four times more efficient than they were in 1980. You don't have to go 100 years back. There, a car that would give you 11 miles per gallon now gives you 35 miles per gallon. Uh, but we haven't even begun improving internal combustion engines. I, I don't want to. I don't want to start because it could take us to 2 hours. But the technological advances on internal combustion are no less than in any other field. These are going to be wonderful engines, and by the way, they may be using other fuels as well. Who knows? If they can manage to make hydrogen cheaply and that it won't blow up so easily, maybe that'll be it. But one thing I can tell you, it ain't fucking solar. When people say the future is solar, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. What they do know, what I do know, is that they're in bed with China and getting subsidies in the US. That's the only two reasons you can go for this shit.
My brother in Vegas bought into the whole, get solar panels and sell electricity back to the company, et cetera, et cetera. His panels have never worked efficiently for more than a couple months at a time, and then they need some form of repair. So he's always getting the repairman over. He said if he had to do it all over again, he wouldn't. It's a scam,
It's a scam.
They're very, very vulnerable. An entire massive field of solar panels was wiped out in Texas by hail.
Yeah, I was gonna say in Nevada, where you never, ever, ever, ever have hailstorms.
Yeah,
Not ever. It
yeah.
doesn't happen.
If they get covered in dust the way they do in Death Valley,
Yep.
their efficiency drops precipitously. They have to have people go out there with squeegees and squeegee them off. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That's of course you squeegee them eventually, and don't get me started on because everybody loves to protect the biosphere. So don't get me started on the amount of birds that get roasted on the freaking solar panels.
Well, all forms of alternate energy are horrendous for wildlife. And, about the only thing that isn't is like Icelandic volcanic power.
Or oil. Oil saved the whales.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
Literally.
the we go through these periods, and there was this period where it seemed like there was. Remember, off the coast of France, there was some tanker that went down, and the bow was sticking out of the water for ages. And it looked like a great white shark breaching, and it was all about we have to stop this because these oil spills are utterly detrimental. And then
No, they're not.
Suddenly there were none. There were none.
No, and I have to remind people, oil oozes from the bottom of the oceans,
Yeah,
just like it does at La Brea fucking Boulevard in LA.
yeah.
It oozes. The amount of oil that Mama Earth releases into the oceans every year dwarfs anything you can do with a fucking tanker. And like somebody told me many, many years ago, the solution to pollution is dilution. You
Is what?
drop dilution. The solution to pollution is dilution. You can do it up in the room with a jazz rhythm. And that is true. A whole fucking tanker, when dissolved into 70% of the Earth's surface, plus the depth into the Marianas Trenches, is nothing. You'll never find it again. You'll never see it again. Like you never saw again the leak in the Gulf after a year. It disappears. It's reabsorbed. It's reprocessed. Goodbye. It's not a big problem. You can take a leak in the ocean and you'll never find a drop of the ocean where you can identify your pee. Even if your pee is the size of a tanker. IO is saying that BP began ditching all of its green investments and announced that it will be an oil company again. They couldn't afford to keep losing money. It's over. It's over. The global warming green energy canard is over.
Mm-hmm.
The only people making money out of it and pushing the envelope is China
Mm-hmm.
and its allies. And Elon Musk, forgive me, I know you're far more gentle with him than I do, but give me a break. He's in bed with the Chinese.
Yeah, he is.
Between the Tesla factories and the solar panels and all that jazz, his destiny is tied to that of the Communist Party of China. And if he wanted to do something to impress people, he ought to start divesting from China yesterday.
Well, Elon, I mean, Elon is in some ways he's a savant, and I feel for him in some ways because his family life, his parents are disasters, and his father his father never misses an opportunity to badmouth him and compare him to the other brother, and the father is like this grinning bastard, and I feel bad for people who have parents like that. And
But by the way, he was defending him today.
oh, of course.
He was
Mel
defending Elon today.
Mel Gibson defends his father, who was a Nazi. He was a Holocaust denier. You know,
So is Mel Gibson. It,
I can feel bad for people while uh, 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 seeing their own, what would you call it, enslavement to their parents. And I mean, okay, in the end, it doesn't matter because Elon has no more power. He has no power in the federal government. He never actually did. All he did was make recommendations. And,
yep.
you know,
And he'll continue to do that. One thing I know, the first time I voted for Trump, he voted for Hillary.
yeah.
When I voted for, I actually did voted for McCain, but hey, you know, it was either that or Obama.
Yeah,
Sue me.
exactly.
At that time, he voted for Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Eh, when I voted for Trump the second time, he voted for Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And only after Butler, when it was written on the walls that Trump was going to carry this election, did he come to this side?
Mm-hmm.
Did he have an epiphany or was it a business decision? I don't know and I don't care.
No,
Neither you nor I nor anybody can know what's in between his ears.
no.
That's his business. That's why I always say that's why I judge actions, not thoughts or intentions. Eh, but the thing is that he did come. When he did come towards the light, he practically burned the bridges with the Democrats. They're not going to take him back.
Well, they're still talking about basically putting him in prison over Doge. So I know there was some article today. It said Trump threatens Musk if he supports Democrats. He's not going to support Democrats because they're going to try and mess with him legally.
Oh,
You know, if
well,
they
he's going to support Ocasio Cortez now? Give me a fucking break.
no, it's what's going to happen is our economy is going to boom, and you know, Musk will make back a hell of a lot of money and everything's going to be fine. But you know, I don't know. I just there's so much going on in the world right now in terms of massive changes and things that we never thought could be resolved are being resolved. And you know, we're seeing these dinosaurs like Putin being left in the rearview mirror. You know, the Russians claimed that they launched the largest drone and missile attack in history, and
Okay.
what did you
Yeah,
say?
yeah.
One person was killed.
One person was killed, 10 were wounded, and I called it.
Yeah.
And people accused me of being frivolous because I said, what are they going to do? Drop a shit ton of missiles? They're going to kill a couple of people, wound a dozen or so, and call it a day because they don't have anything else that they can do. In terms of sheer size, the drone attack by Iran on Israel was massively bigger than anything. And of course, oh God, what's his name? not the Iskander, the other missile, the RS-26,
Yeah.
uh, with a longer section, or Oshinka. I can't remember now. I'm having a brain fart. Even Putin spoke. We're going to use the Oshinka for the first time. They're going to see what's coming. By the way, they used the fucking Oshinka last year 3 times. It was a dud.
Yeah.
And they tried it again this time, and guess what? It exploded mid-air near the Kazakhstan border. It's fucking useless.
Yeah.
If these people were to launch a nuclear attack, they would be glowing in the dark for the next 100 years.
Well, I was reading that okay, Shoigu went back to North Korea to beg for something,
To beg for anything. They
anything.
have
I guess.
nothing.
They have nothing, and the North Korean troops. There's all this jibber jabber about how they've learned from their mistakes. They haven't learned anything. They're still launching human waves.
They're
And
all 6 feet under. They need more.
the only thing they've done is they leave their helmets and their flak vests behind because they're all going to die.
So they can move faster when they run away.
Yeah, they claim they do it so they can move faster. No, they do it so that those helmets and flak vests can be given to the next wave of idiots to wear while they're in their trenches. I mean, the North Koreans have turned out to be the most fanatical people on the face of the earth. They found a diary by some dead one, and it was nothing but love letters to Kim Jong-un. And
Giving his life for the dear leader.
well, this is the thing, that these guys blow themselves up with grenades rather than surrender. I think the Ukrainians have taken a grand total of 2 North Koreans live. And, what can you do except kill them?
There is an environmentalist argument for this, because you are uh, getting rid of oxygen consuming, protein eating entities that provide nothing of value to the environment except the amount of potassium in their bodies as fertilizer.
Well,
The North Koreans are good for nothing other than fertilized cornfields.
it's the weirdest thing because the Ukrainian drone capacity. I saw a video today, and it looked like a Cessna flying, and it's a drone. And a single drone hit this factory and leveled the whole factory. And everybody's talking about how this is the wave of the future, and that will be as vulnerable as the Russians were. No, the U.S. is working on how to deal with fiber optic FPV drones, and there's a way. I'm sure it's gonna revolve around something around electromagnetic pulses.
Yep.
To blow out the engines, because
which is working wonderfully well so far.
Yeah, I mean, we've by the end of the war in Iraq, we were using lasers to blow up roadside bombs, and the Israelis are now
using lasers against missiles.
Right, and each laser shot costs like $3.
$5.
Yeah, so. I saw the most amazing videos posted by the New York Post, I believe, or it may have been the Sun. I'm not sure, but it was a 2,000-pound bomb. The Israelis dropped 50 2,000-pound bombs in the same hole under the European hospital and wiped out the latest Sinwar and his staff. But the first one that went through. There were people. They dropped it in the middle of a space in the crowd, and I swear to God, there was some guy who rode the debris. He was on his back, sort of being carried by a big slab of asphalt, and it landed, and he got up and ran away. I saw no casualties. From
He was like Saint Patrick landing on Aaron on a lump of pudding
Yeah,
stone melted.
no, it was really amazing. And they showed the before and after picture of the hospital. There was a little hole in the parking lot. That was it.
Yeah, and by the way, they did find the entrances to the tunnels, and
Yeah,
of course, all of the underground of the hospital were nothing but tunnels, weapons, warehouses, communications offices,
yeah,
and as
yeah.
usual, nothing new,
The
nothing new.
doctors are members of Hamas. So
Yeah,
um, but okay, I found out that the people guarding the American aid depot are private contractors, and they're private contractors from Egypt, believe it or not. They're from the Sinai, and there's
they have no love lost for Hamas.
well, this is the thing. There are people complaining that these are essentially jihadists. They're not
Mm.
fighting the government. They're Bedouin, and the ones I saw were waving and being very friendly to the Palestinians coming in for the food. And the Israelis, people are criticizing the Israelis and the Americans for hiring these guys, but they're not Americans. And Americans don't want Americans there where they could get killed. And the people don't really want Americans there. So they brought in Bedouin from the Sinai, who in a lot of ways don't have a dog in this fight. They have no problem with Israel, and they're not buddies with Hamas, and they haven't gone to war with Hamas. So they're sort of trusted as not being a danger to the Palestinians. And they were all saying, "Thank you, America. Thank you, Donald Trump." So, so much for the narrative that everybody hates us.
Oh no, no! Now there are the clans in southern Gaza. I think I once explained to you what Dr. Kedar had told me in a conversation about the clannish nature of Palestinian society in Gaza, and how one of the ideas that they were considering at the point was to create small emirates
Mm-hmm.
where each clan could control its own city and get rid of Hamas and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the moment for that passed,
Mm-hmm.
and now Gaza is going to be a fucking parking lot. But right now, the clans are uniting against Hamas,
Mm-hmm.
which is, if you want, uh, a day late and a dollar short. They should have done this a long time ago, because right now it's very easy to rise against Hamas. There's very little left. But the fact is that they are rising, and now you're having firefights between the clans and what's left of Hamas,
Mm-hmm.
with the clans opening the way for people to go get food from warehouses that Hamas has been guarding and storing aid in order to profit from it.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the collapse of that system in real time. It's fascinating, actually.
Well, this is why someone like Greta Thunberg should be allowed to land in Gaza, where she can immediately be taken hostage by Hamas, and then nobody will pay her ransom. Nobody will. I saw the Babylon Bee says Hamas agrees to surrender if Greta Thunberg is prevented from landing on their shores, and the Israelis have gone out to meet the little flotilla.
Well, Tila is one.
You're right. It's not a flotilla. It's a single ship holding about 8 pounds of food. And
No, they ate it already.
sure, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, Greta
They're holding 4 Libyan refugees now.
Greta looks very bad. I don't imagine that she's bathed in a while. Um,
Oh God,
and
just what I needed. A smelly Greta image in my head.
yeah, well, there was she gave some little speech, and her hair was it looked like she got her hair permed while at sea. And I realized it was because her hair's so dirty. She can't comb it anymore. It's
Yeah,
nothing.
she's gonna end up like a Rastafarian.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and again, she moved away from climate change because nobody cares. Everybody's getting rid of their stupid. Well, except for the Germans. The Germans will plow ahead stubbornly until at some point the Germans are able to vote for enough conservatives to tell the Greens to shove it.
Well, the Spanish government decided to give it a try as to how reliable solar is, and they caused a massive blackout that affected the entire fucking country, where 12 people died because, oh my, the system doesn't have inertia. So without a solid nuclear slash oil base, uh, solar and wind are not only unreliable but quite unfucking stable.
Mhm.
And the Germans are going forward with their project to reach the same level of stupidity as Spain. Mind boggling, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, remember the Germans built tanks in World War II that were intended to last for decades when the average lifespan of a tank at the time, a German tank, was 3 weeks. So,
Yeah.
this is why I think the Americans produced 14,000 Sherman tanks while the Germans produced 250 King Tiger tanks. A beauty of engineering, except, okay, uh, you couldn't you couldn't fix the engine on the battlefield. You had to take it back to the factory. You couldn't fix the wheel problem because
What did you do? Call the AAA?
okay, they turned one of their Tiger tanks into a mortar for firing in urban areas, and it had to have a wagon that followed it that carried munitions for it, and it had a crane that would lift the munition out, and then they would lower it into the tank. So it would fire this devastating mortar, and then it would take like half an hour to reload. And by that time, the Americans had found it, and it would be gone. So that's the German mindset, and they've brought it today. That same weird irrationality where they're destroying their industry and their farming for reasons, and it's all going to fail. And at some point, they'll say, "You know what? It was a failure." And it's like, "Oh, but you knew that at the beginning." Yes, we did, but we had to try it because
No,
it
we
was.
needed to try it. It's a political thing.
Yeah.
I was telling us that Labour, my not quite so favorite assholes in Great Britain, are having an identity crisis, an internal civil war over net zero at the moment. It's quite funny to watch from the outside. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it is quite funny to watch from outside the UK because if you're inside the UK, being taxed up to your ass with unreliable service, with a government that is collapsing in front of your eyes, this net zero thing, you're going to miss the fun. You're going to be too worried about all this stuff. Now, watching it develop from outside of the UK, it is a spectator sport. I'll grant you that. Yes.
Yeah, the Brits, okay, the Irish have begun arresting anti illegal immigration
Yeah.
protesters,
Well,
because
they're,
as
they're, they're, they're to the brink of civil war in Ireland.
Well, as they point out very proudly, they don't have anything such as the First Amendment in Ireland.
Mm-mm.
The
No,
Canadians say the same thing. We don't have the First Amendment here. That's an
no, no,
American.
nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and like all of this stuff is madness. It's madness on a level that we didn't reach. We got close, but we still have elections that if you get enough votes, they can't actually steal the election. They can steal local elections the way they did in California,
Yep.
but they can't steal the presidency if you have enough votes. And
But
this
but
time
it is
around,
something. It is something that we need to fix, and it is not so difficult to fix it. If people stopped pussyfooting and went the same way that we can go for the wall and ICE and get the bill through reconciliation passed, which it will pass, the so-called big beautiful bill. Um, we need to do something like that for election integrity, and we need to do away completely with absentee and mail-in ballots everywhere. And I don't care what fear-inducing story somebody tells me about the paraplegic who cannot go to vote. I don't give a shit. The integrity of the elections to me are far more important than bend the system backwards so that one person with some discapacity can vote.
well, I saw a police body cam video. It was taken on election day in 2024, and there was I don't remember what state it was in. I think it was California. But the line went out the polling station and around the block. So this young guy just came in and he just cut in line at the front. And the people in line complained to the elderly poll workers, and they told him he had to get to the back of the line. And so he punched this old woman in the face, and then an old man approached him and got between him and the elderly woman, and he punched the old man in the face. So people held him against the wall until the cops came. Yeah, I know it was in California because when the cops told him he had to turn around and put his hands behind his back, he said, "Give me a second. Give me a second." This is very Californian. I guess they have to gather themselves. But he started shrieking that he wasn't going to get to vote. And the poll worker he punched said, "Damn right, you're not going to vote. We're not going to process you. You lost your ability to vote here by attacking the poll workers. So goodbye." And that was that. He didn't get to vote. And he was crazy. He was absolutely crazy. He took no responsibility. They had a million witnesses to tell the cops what happened. He denied it all, and then started trying to say, just give me a second. Just give me a second. It's like, no. What do you mean? The cop was saying, you don't run things. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Oh, man. But the poll workers didn't let him. They weren't going to process him because he
Good for them.
threw them in the face. Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's all it takes. But so anyway, we need to do that. On a presidential system, we're going to have way more chances than Europeans do on parliamentarian systems. Because if you think our elections can be manipulated, take a good look at Europe. Parliamentary systems are the most fucked up
Well, they're
and
inherently
the most
unstable.
corrupt. Yep. It took an American imbecile to think that such a parliamentary system would be a great idea for a unified Iraq.
Yeah. Yeah. And look what happened.
Yeah, no, that Brenner imbecile. I mean, what the fuck was he smoking? And at the time, I thought, A, that Iraq had to be partitioned
Mhm.
into three distinct states, culturally, linguistically, ethnically, religiously, three distinct states, and that a presidential system for each and every one of them was the best solution for a people that are essentially accustomed to being governed by a strongman. So they need the figure of a president, the unifying figure of a president. And no, we didn't. We kept them all together. So we kept all of the feral cats inside of this unnecessary bag. We fucked the Kurds in the ass over. We fucked the Sunnis in Anbar. And we handed the keys of Baghdad to Iran. Who was that genius?
It was,
Brenner.
I mean,
Bremer.
yeah, Bremer.
But all of these uh, eggheads that spent 3 hours studying in the social studies faculty, and they come up with this kind of shit, and you say, but would it be nice to listen to the people in the area? Would it have been nice to ask the Kurds, do you really want to be in the same bag with these Shia assholes down south? They never did that. They never did that.
No, no. In okay, the Al Qaeda started its attacks almost immediately because Al Zarqawi was that his name? I think so. He was already in Iraq.
Hold on. Yeah, Al Sarkawi.
Yeah, he was already in Iraq, and
No, wait a second. Are you talking while the American occupation was on?
yeah,
Yeah, that was Al Sarkawi. He was in. He was sponsored by Saddam.
yeah.
Because Saddam didn't have anything to do with Al Qaeda. Bull fucking shit.
Except for training them and funding them, and
Oh, and having Al Qaeda run a rising lab in Halabja
yeah.
and training terrorists in training camps right outside of Baghdad, like Salman Pak.
Well,
No,
Saddam,
no.
before Saddam was overthrown, he reverted to a strict form of Islam. He put Allahu Akbar on the Iraqi flag. He started praying 5 times a day, and he started murdering prostitutes and people who ran bars, and he essentially turned against everything he'd ever done except for, um, you know, corrupt power and torture and all of that. But I mean, you still hear it occasionally. Our poor, sad ex-president, said, "Let history decide," and it did, and it decided wrong. But that was his choice to never defend himself. Now he just, finger paints, and he's sort of almost an asterisk in history, which is too bad because he wasn't a horrible president. He just
No. But you're correct. He's speaking, and I told you this from the first moment I heard it from you. His pathological inability to defend himself. What kind of psychological uh, problem he has, I don't know. But
well,
it's not enough to be right. You have to defend your position. You have
there
to
was a
argue your position. The leader's role is to lead, to explain to people why he's right and the morons aren't.
there was a
And he
former
relinquished that.
there was a former Catholic nun who blogged, and her theory about George W. Bush was that, okay, Bill Clinton wormed his way into the Bush family to the extent that Barbara called him the son she never had. And she showed much more favoritism toward Bill Clinton than her own son George. George was the family screw up. And what her theory was that George W. felt a pathological need to differentiate himself from Bill, and he felt that defending himself would make him too Clinton-esque. He would be making excuses. So Bill, remember Bill and George Herbert were like touring the world, asking
Yeah.
people to donate money. I mean, they were very close. And
What was it? That was after a tsunami or some shit like that. Uh,
yeah,
uh,
and I think that there's some truth to that George W. Every president seems to have a need to differentiate himself from his predecessor, and Trump doesn't, because Trump has always been his own guy. And
he seems to be the one who doesn't give a shit about any of these things.
exactly, like I would bet that Trump never spends a second of his time, a microsecond, a nanosecond, thinking about either Biden or Obama.
Mhm.
He's got too many other things on his plate. But remember, George W.'s hero was Teddy Kennedy. And I found this ghastly photo of George and Nancy Pelosi sitting at this table smiling at each other, and they look like boyfriend and girlfriend. And
You're gonna make me puke.
yeah,
Yeah, but not even because the image of Nancy. Anybody looking at Nancy as if they were in love is enough to make me puke. But no, I remember when Dabia and the lion of the Senate came up with No Child Left Behind,
yeah.
and I thought it was an aberration.
Well, Ted was the first Democrat to accuse Trump of lying us into the Iraq War. And what I read was that George W. was so shattered emotionally that he, at this betrayal, that he took it very personally. And you can't if you're in politics, you can't take anything personally, because after Ted died, the Spanish ambassador to the U.S. said that Ted told him he supported the war in Iraq, but he had to vote for it because he was the big Democrat. He had to vote against it, sorry, because he was the big Democrat, and then he had to attack Trump. But
Not Trump, Bush.
Bush, sorry, Bush, and the Spanish ambassador said that Ted was thanking him for all the support that Spain gave to us before Al Qaeda blew up the train system in Madrid, and the Spanish.
Which brought in the decay of Spain.
Exactly, exactly.
Because the pathetic, cowardly reaction to that Al Qaeda attack,
Yep.
to the point that to this day they say that it was something else, even though Al Sudi uh, was involved.
Yeah.
Uh, Brought Zapatero to power and ended a wonderful period of growth for Spain
Mhm.
and ushered in an era of
Collapse.
pusillanimity, cowardice, corruption in a scale that I haven't seen develop so fast
No.
anywhere.
And
And now they're, governed by one of the most corrupt crime families anywhere in Europe, and in bed with China. and Hamas.
Yeah.
I said, you got, and of course Venezuela, Cuba, and Petro. You gotta be, and this was brought about by the reaction to the Al Qaeda attack,
Mhm.
and they targeted Spain because of their support for the Iraq War in the first year. So what you're saying is accurate to the T.
Well, Spain is really weird. Spain was neutral in World War One, but they sent military observers to learn from both the Germans and the French and British. And in 1918, the Spanish wrote a new infantry manual that combined the best aspects of both sides, and it was never implemented. It it just it just died, and from that point on, the Spanish military was ridiculous, and they had the opportunity
And so it is.
to to be really, really effective. That manual is really quite amazing because they had everything they needed in an infantry battalion and or an infantry regiment rather, and it was shocking. I didn't know. I didn't know that the Spanish had done this, and the reason I didn't know was because it was stamped out by the government that came in, following the First World War, and oh God, we can't have this because war is bad, war is terrible, and then 15, 20 years later, they end up in the Civil War. The Nazis come in, the Italians come in. Um,
Stalin comes in.
exactly, yeah.
Well, the fucking Democrats and the Club of No Intervention, the French Socialists and British Socialists and the Democrats go and let
Mhm.
Stalin and Hitler split the land between them.
Yep.
God, I will never forgive them for they've done so much harm to this world
Yeah.
and still do.
Well, they still do. This is the thing that the good thing about the Democrats today is that they're really stupid. Like Ocasio Cortez is a stupid, stupid woman. Um,
Painfully so.
Jasmine Crockett, I don't know
He's a
about her
re,
native.
he's a retard.
Well, I don't know about her native intelligence, but she's decided that the key to her success is to be ghetto, right at a time when the country is turning against ghettoism. Um, I watch a lot of YouTube while I'm doing my photo work. I listen to it, and I haven't subscribed to YouTube. I don't know why, so I still get commercials. Every single
I don't because I don't want to give him a fucking dime.
every single commercial now, the music has a mumbling young black woman ghettoing away, and it's gross. It's like it's all different. It's all different people. It's I don't know if this is real music that they've licensed or if it's music they made up because it's big companies. But it's gross. It's just you just picture like this cockroach infested house and drugs and welfare and all of that, and it's not the right time. It's like the country has had it with that in a way it's never had it before, and we're seeing black people speaking out about this, not Uncle Toms, not people. I mean, we're seeing urban black people speaking out about it. Just like this is awful. We're sick of it. We're sick of ghettoism, and I think it's going to continue. I don't think we're going to go back in the other direction.
Did I just lose your sound?
I don't think so.
Oh no, okay. No, I don't. I don't know. This is always a yo-yo. We've been one way or another going left and right since the birth of the republic. We've had this problem before the Civil War, during the Civil War, and after the Civil War, and we have people who want to give more uh, power to the states because the closer you get to the people, the better the system works. And we have to limit the powers of the federal government for that very reason. Um, People who want to put emphasis on the rights and liberties of the individual. And there are those who want a strong central government and who believe in the rights and liberties of the commonwealth, of society. We've had this argument back and forth since before the Constitution was written. I have no expectation that it will abate any time. I think that it's going to be part and parcel of our lives as we continue with this experiment. And for 30 years, the socialists will have it, and then for 30 years, we will have it, and we'll be zigzagging around the map, trying to keep the mean going forward.
Well,
I don't think it's going to end ever.
in the past, leftists, hippies, whatever, they go on the Dick Cavett show and they debate, um, Gore Vidal or somebody like that. Not Gore Vidal, he was a leftist. What the hell was his name? He started National Review. Who's the guy who started National Review?
Oh, the guy who's now butthurt with Trump.
No, he died.
Not
His
not. Oh no, you're not talking about Bill Crystal or
Not Bill Crystal, but William.
William Buckley Jr.
No, no. Anyway,
He was betrayed by his successors, by the way.
well, these hippies would go on the Dick Cavett show and have debates, or they'd go on, CBS on election night or whatever, and they were educated. And today, like I saw a video, and Bernie Sanders was going to speak, and these two screaming black women climbed up on stage and just yanked the microphone away and just started shrieking. And Bernie just stood there and didn't do anything. And they weren't the two women weren't saying anything of value. It was just everything we've ever heard, just invective. And I don't remember the level of invective. You had like Black Panthers, but a majority of them were like intellectuals. They wore the stupid costume, but like they could discuss things. Like you didn't have these brainless thugs. And
Yeah.
what we have now is just this weird, hysteria. AOC she tried to, some fat member of the squad was up for election, and he lost. And so she went to campaign for him, and she was running around on stage flipping her hair, and then he started propellering his arms, and then he started yelling and jumping up and down, and there were like 30 people there watching them, and he lost. He was like the first member of the squad to get ejected from Congress, and their performance was ridiculous. Like when you think back to the 60s or whatever, where people were able to express complex ideas coherently, And you look at AOC and Trump's a Nazi. I'm going to go cry in front of this fence that doesn't fence off anything. I'm going to defend illegal alien criminals. I'm going to call for people to set things on fire. I don't know.
I think I know what you're talking about. Even the assholes of the Noam Chomsky
Yeah.
crowd, leftists from Columbia, Michigan, Chicago, um, Harvard, Stanford, they were all pseudo intellectuals. They fancied themselves some sort of intellectual vanguard. And they were able, in the peculiar way of the 1960s revolutionaries, to vomit a word salad about the plight of the working people and the role of the intellectual vanguard of the proletariat and how we needed a revolution to end colonialism and imperialism and to implant a more, a nirvana based on social justice and all that jazz. Eh, they were able to articulate it and they were able to expound those ideas in a somewhat cogent way, even though it was garbage. But you're right, the ones today have not the ability to string two sentences together.
No.
They can't explain what they're doing. They are communicating with emojis.
Also,
You just said it. You didn't refer to anything Ocasio-Cortez said. You referred to an emoji, Ocasio-Cortez crying by the fence. It's
no.
false, it's stupid, it's cretinous, and it's nothing but emotion.
Also, the leftists oppose any kind of discussion. When you see protests and some right winger with a microphone wants to talk to them, somebody from who's in charge of the protest comes up and tells him not to talk to the right winger. And it just shows you, like, if you're just going to be protesting, you're not going to gain anybody on your side. It's not going to solve anything. If you were debating people like Christopher Hitchens, for example, boy, I didn't know. Boy, Christopher Hitchens, poor guy. He said that he hadn't been sober for most of his adult life, and
No, that's true.
before he went out and debated his best debates, he would pound down half a bottle of whatever hard liquor he had there. And, he died of esophageal cancer,
Yes.
drinking and smoking. I don't know. But anyway, someone like Christopher Hitchens, who is a leftist, was not afraid of debate. And someone like Ocasio-Cortez, I mean, if she's the nominee and she goes up against J.D. Vance,
Oh, she's gonna cry.
they'll agree to one debate and then she'll get completely hammered. One of the most brilliant things J.D. Vance did was Kamala arrived at an airport and she didn't get off the plane. And all the press was waiting for her to get off the plane. And J.D. Vance's plane landed and he went over to where all the reporters were waiting for Kamala. And he said, she's not getting off the plane. She's not going to talk to you. Talk to me. And he had an impromptu press conference right there. So If he can do the same thing to Ocasio-Cortez and just get under her skin that way, then
And
it's going to,
assuming, of course, she'll make it, which I want, but I doubt very much it'll happen.
who else is it going to be?
My dog,
There's nobody out there right now
fatter,
with.
fatter man.
I don't think it's going to be him because he's very iffy mentally. He
Well,
goes through.
no, that's not a disadvantage considering who he's going to be running against. There's going to be at least 10 assholes vying for the position.
Well,
Probably none better than uh,
it's going to be
Ocasio-Cortez.
it's going to be Kamala, Ocasio-Cortez, Jazzy Crockett, Pete Buttigieg, probably Elizabeth Warren. It's going to be
Don't forget Marianne Williamson. She always wants to be there for
Marianne
her folks.
Williamson.
The guy who wants to, but we don't know if he's going to make it to the primaries is of course gruesome.
Yeah, Newsom.
But and there are others. Pritzker wants it too, and he always has the precedent of Taft uh, for his size. Um, but
Look at
we'll
all them.
see.
They're midgets. They're midgets.
They're all of them mental midgets. Well, fuck, they're Democrats. I mean, they're like zombies. They're like zombies. Uh, People are comparing the learning experiences with William Buckley Jr. By the way, Bill Buckley was a Jew. He was a pleasure to listen to. I got an education out of that man on PBS of all places. I miss him greatly. I miss his commentary. I miss his sense of humor. Have you noticed there is no replacement for him?
no, no. I mean, National Review is anti-Trump. Jonah Goldberg. Every time I see Jonah Goldberg with his stupid hairstyle going on the news to trash Trump again, it's just like, just give it up. You're a clown. You're a buffoon. You
Yeah,
have no.
but the thing is that Trump or no Trump, William Buckley Jr. could make an argument and make it clearly.
Sure.
There's nobody out there who can. And
No.
those who looked like they could, like Jeff Goldberg,
Hmm.
at one time he seemed to be a potential successor, but he's gone so fucking deranged over Trump.
Hmm.
The guy's lost the ability to think.
Well, Trump is a diagnostic tool and a touchstone because if you hate Trump, Trump hatred is a spectrum disorder. If you hate Trump, there's a whole bunch of other stuff wrong with you. You don't have a normal, content person who hates Trump so much that they want to see him not alive. And you know, all these people, their invective is so personal. And look at them. You mentioned him earlier, Bill Crystal, or what was that? The Lincoln Project. That
No, the pedophiles.
the guy with the giant double chin, George Conway.
Yeah,
Like these people are mentally ill.
very unstable. Very unstable. Uh, Well, I don't know. If I were married to Kellyanne Conway, probably I would be unstable too. Uh, I never liked the woman. I'm sorry. Uh, I have that problem with a lot of people. What am I looking here? The Bears. I have no idea what they're doing in the chat.
The Bears.
Yes,
Who are the Bears?
The Bears. Who are the Bears? Conquistador is from your neighborhood.
A
Uh,
sports team?
I don't know. Pritzker, they're talking about Pritzker, which I mentioned as one of the potentials. He wants to. They're going to have to make a special plane for him twice as wide.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
No, I mean, he's too fat. He's not going to make it.
yeah, but he's going to tell you, but Taft was even wider than, that Howard Taft, they had to make a special casket for him because he didn't fit in any of the standards. Um, Provided he doesn't kill over from a heart attack. But then he says the Bears, and that is where they lose me. It must have been some kind of internal joke. But anyway, so eh, no, they don't have anybody. Unfortunately, we don't even have to think about it for a couple of years yet. The one thing that, it's 1 year to the primaries for the midterms. It's an eternity. Whatever we say now, it's probably going to be passed over by reality 7 times over. But at this rate, I think the Democrats are bent on having Trump beat the odds and increase his margin in both houses.
Hmm.
It's there's very few things the Democrats can do to fuck themselves up more than they're doing now.
Yep.
The only thing that I lament with the riots is they're not happening in May next year, because by May next year, people will have forgotten the riots in Los Angeles this month.
Hmm.
So, Democrats, please keep doing what you're doing. Don't let yourselves be uh, discouraged. Keep being idiots for another year, please. I beg of you. In the meantime, we can put the National Guard and deport 3,000 a year, and thank you very fucking much.
Hmm.
We're getting to the magic number, you know.
Yeah.
We're about 2,600 a year a day now. 2,400 the day before yesterday, 2,600 yesterday. We're tantalizingly close to the 3,000 a day.
These are not
We can
pepper
do
spray.
that.
They're throwing stuff out here.
Hold on.
Holy shit.
Let's see. I'm watching people who try to block the.
Ice in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the fuckers with an Argentine flag, a Palestinian flag, Mexican flags all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, my first thought was great. It's like fishing in a bathtub. Start arresting the protesters. I guarantee you half of them are illegal.
Hmm.
And they can go and have their Mexican pride parade in Tijuana the next day. I mean, how difficult can it be to pass them over to Tijuana? The Dems have to attract more males to win the vote. Are there any hot female Democrats? No, they're all
Oh,
shrews.
did you see the
Hot
person?
women are Republican women.
Did you see the person who the Democrats hired to uh, uh, bring more men into the party? She's a morbidly obese lesbian.
Yeah, Juanita, I don't know what the fuckita. Eh, I don't know, but I see that woman and I run in the opposite
Hmm.
direction.
Hmm.
The problem is that the Democrats hate straight men. They hate straight men. They hate straight women. They hate everybody. Um, Oh, they're talking about Luciane Goldberg as well. And she was a fine lady. The Democrats seem hell-bent on taking the unpopular position in every 90-10 issue. Never mind 80-20. Yep,
Hmm.
they do. There is too much partying in the government. I have no idea what you mean, my friend. Um, wow, I didn't know she was dead. Yes, she is. We are talking about Lucian Goldberg.
Hmm.
Sheriff are engaging. No, they're not engaging. You probably mean it in a different way. Sorry. Um, but, anyway, so no, just go, grab him. If they want to come to you, waving flags and chanting slogans, so much the better. Make sure you have a bus nearby, and what is it? A couple of hours, and they're at the border.
Yeah. Wow. This is really bizarre.
What have you found?
Just the rioting they're doing. These are like tiny crowds.
Oh yeah,
They're like 20, 30 people.
yeah, and the biggest one was about 1,000 people in front of a detention center, but 1,000 people in LA
Hmm.
is less than you'll meet on a bus ride from Santa Monica to downtown.
Hmm.
Um, Rioters, says Sarah, launched explosives to an ICE detention center in LA.
Hmm.
Okay, that sounds good. Arrest them all. Um, those, half of the LA rubble will be illegals paid for by the other half, who will have trust funds. Oh yes. Oh yes. That is smack in the middle of the nail head. You guys are missing it. National Guard sent in. Marines on high alert. What the fuck are you? Eh, by the way, hey, we're not missing anything. The first thing we mentioned on the subject nearly an hour and a half ago was the use of the National Guard,
Hmm.
which, of course, is a prerogative of the president, and he does not need to. There was somebody, oh, yeah, Donita had commented at the time that
Hmm.
I thought that unless the governor requested it, it could be done. No, if the state is unwilling or unable to enforce the law and protect the citizens, the president is obligated to use the National Guard to pacify the state
Hmm.
and return to a state of law and does not need anybody's permission to do that. Taram, tam. So anybody who protests about the National Guard can go fuck themselves. Uh, Now, Marines on high alert. You gotta be fucking kidding me. That is the kind of Q-tard bullshit that I have very little patience for. Yes, President Trump has the authority to use the National Guard. He's already ordered the National Guard to the California National Guard to go to LA. No, you cannot use Marines for that, you fucking moron. Sorry, I know, Thomas, you don't like it when I tell people they're morons, but this one is. And I've had it up to here with the Marines are on high alert. The next thing they're going to tell me is that Marine helicopters are landing in Langley and Hillary Clinton is in Guantanamo. Gavin cried about it. I hope he has a lot more to cry for in the next 5 days. Um, we will take back America, says my engineer friend Nighthawk. I think we're doing it already, my friend. Uh, now,
Well, somebody made a really good point. All these people wearing Mexican hats, or sorry,
yes,
Mexican flags,
yes,
they're all
they're
acting
a
as if,
target.
well, they're all acting as if um, being sent back to Mexico is the worst fate possible.
Yes, but they're wearing they're literally not carrying, wearing the Mexican flag. I
Yep,
tell you what, you love Mexico so much, we'll pay for the bus ride
yep,
and send me a postcard from Tijuana, you little asshole.
yep.
Um, and they are targets by walking in the protest draped in the Mexican flag. They make themselves targets. You don't have, I would say if they don't have a passport in their pocket, just send them over to Mexico
Mm-hmm.
and let them worry about that afterwards. Um, LAPD Chief Howdy Doody Year, I mean McDougal, said the police would not assist ICE with arrests.
Well,
Thomas,
but
do you give a shit?
what is he talking about? They're all over the sheriffs and I saw cops in blue all over the place. What was he
Hmm.
talking about?
I don't know.
I saw LAPD riot police all over the place.
I saw riot police shooting gas
Yeah,
at the protesters.
I
Uh,
guess what he's parsing it and he's saying they're not assisting with arrests, but they're simply trying to keep order.
yeah.
Whatever.
Uh,
I mean, this. Remember, this is a city that elected Karen Bass. Karen Bass makes AOC look like a Rhodes Scholar. So
yeah, she did. Well, Karen Bass. You see, the problem with Karen Bass is that she is more honest than AOC, and she does not hide the fact that she's a fucking rabid communist lover of the Cuban model. AOC pretends she's not.
well, since we had the Pacific Palisades fire, out of all the hundreds of homes destroyed, they've given permits to rebuild 8 so far. So the estimate was it was going to take these people 10 years to rebuild.
At
It looks
least.
like that's probably accurate.
Yeah, I think that, frankly, I think that the city's plan is to not let people rebuild and end up building an ode to Comrade Stalin with massive low income housing
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Pacific Palisades. I think
yeah.
that's what they're gonna do.
No,
But
and
she
this
is
is
a fucking Stalinist.
everybody in Pacific Palisades, with the exception of James Woods and a handful of others. They voted for all this stuff, and now it's come
Yeah.
back, and it's not only bitten them in the butt, it's eaten off their butts, and you know,
Oh, I'm not gonna cry for them.
I don't know what to tell them. You couldn't possibly. I mean, I already forgot his name. That district attorney who didn't believe in putting people in prison, Gascon.
Gascon.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a moron. But it's okay. This is what the LA people voted for. This is what they have. Now, when it affects the country as a whole, we send in the National Guard, ICE, and the FBI, and let's see how they dance. Uh, but they're gonna. And have you noticed that Border Patrol is very active
Mm-hmm.
in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
New York,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago? I mean, there is no place in the country they're not going into as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I told you 3 weeks ago that there was already a memo received by border patrol agents all over the country asking for volunteers to do precisely this. The guys who are doing this are not commanded to go in there, are volunteering to go in there.
Also, okay, the usual suspects complain that Trump hadn't deported 11 million people already. Trump is being very brilliant because he started out small. He's gradually increasing the size. By the time they're deporting tens of thousands, the country will have lost interest and moved on to whatever other calamity and hysteria the press tells them is worth being hysterical over.
Oh, and they're doing a good job of telling you what kind of asshole they are deporting,
Mhm.
what kind of asshole they are arresting.
Yeah.
The Chrome Detention Center in Miami, on Chrome Avenue, of course, southwest of Miami, um, between the Everglades and Homestead. That place was nearly empty. Now it's full to capacity. And I was cracking up yesterday with a video of the arrival of a Chilean deportee in Santiago who was screaming bloody murder because they took me and they put me there and I had to sleep on the floor because the place is full to the brim and now they put me here and I don't have money to get to my home in Arica. So that's your fucking problem.
Yeah,
You don't want to be deported with what? You wanted some travel money from the American people too?
I guess.
I mean, be glad we put you there. And don't come illegally anymore if you don't like sleeping in Chrome Center, asshole. I can't believe that anybody would vindicate these morons. Chrome Avenue and the Mikosuki Indians. Indeed, the Mikosuki, who are anything but Indians, are very nearby, very nearby on 8th Street, Tamiami Trail, and Chrome Avenue, just north of the Chrome Detention Center. And I say anything but Indians because the Mikosuki are not Indians. I don't know how they managed to get recognition as an Indian tribe, which allowed them to put a casino and all that jazz, when in fact it was bands of freed, not freed, runaway slaves, smugglers, people of all races that took refuge in the Everglades because nobody could chase them there. It was a deadly swamp. And they formed communities in the Everglades, but they're not natives, they're not Indians. If these people are Florida Indians, so was Blackbird. But they managed to get recognition and they managed to get a casino. Absolutely insane.
Well, Peter,
Absolutely insane.
Peter Benchley wrote a novel about this island out in the Pacific that was inhabited entirely by pirates who'd been living there and breeding for hundreds of years, but they were still, they still had flintlocks, and they would like hijack, passing yachts and kill everybody and take the yacht and keep the women to impregnate. And they made a movie out of it with Michael Caine. And they didn't know how to end it the way Peter Benchley did, so they just had Michael Caine. They were on like a Coast Guard boat, and it was a ship. And the pirates killed all the Coast Guardsmen because, Coast Guardsmen, they don't know how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Caine found a loaded 50 caliber machine gun, and he pulled the cover off it, and he mowed down the entire pirate tribe, and that was the end of him. But yeah, that was a really frustrating movie because the pirates were given superhuman powers, and these are guys with no teeth. They were all barefoot, and they were still wearing their They're 200 years
Malnourished, I
old.
mean.
Yeah, they're wearing
I imagine.
breeches.
Holy fuck. Leftist fatigue is real, says Conquistador.
Mhm.
I think you mentioned that, and yeah, it is. Each tribal member of the Mikosuki, the ones who are not even Indians, gets 7,500 a month tax free for life. People, I don't know what you're doing, but come down to Florida and marry a Mikosuki girl. Holy crap. By the way, the Seminoles have a better deal. And those are real Indians for a change. Those are the ones who refused to go to Oklahoma and came to the Everglades as well. No Trail of Tears for them. And now they're in Broward County. They are right off of Griffin Road, prime real estate. What was once stupid wilderness with nothing on is the grand what is it? The Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, surrounded by 3 million gamblers. Jeez. Uh,
But
hmm? I never understood this. I
never
never
understood.
understood this thing. I never understood why we gave citizenship to the tribes, but allowed them to keep sovereignty over their territory.
We
Are
felt
they
bad.
American citizens or are they not?
Well, I mean, okay, I know about World War One. In World War One, they had Cherokee code talkers who would speak to each
Yes.
other in Cherokee, which of course the Germans couldn't understand.
World War II as well.
In World War II, it was the Navajo, but in World War One, it was the Cherokee,
Yeah.
and we weren't allowed to draft them. We had to go; they all had to be volunteers, and so we had to go from each Cherokee community. We had to go to each one and ask them to enlist. So I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. Like, you know, do they?
Originally, Indian territory was Indian territory. The
Yeah.
reservations were sovereign. The federal government had no authority over the reservation. Indians handled their own affairs as independent nations would. And then we granted them citizenship, but maintaining the sovereignty of the reservations. That is what I don't understand. I would understand if you say, okay, if you want to be under our jurisdiction, here's the citizenship. But I don't get it. When a child is born as a Mikosuki, yeah, of course. The 7,500 a month go into an escrow, and when they turn 18, they get the loot. Not bad. Get busy, people. Have Mikosuki children. The wind talkers.
Yeah, those are the Navajos.
Yes.
Okay, the Indian citizenship of 1924 granted citizenship to Native Americans born in the U.S., and prior to that, some Native Americans were excluded from citizenship due to their tribal affiliation
Exactly.
and not being subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. So
Exactly.
it was
But
a big mishmash.
oh, a big mismatch, and it is still today because it says there that they're citizens if born in the U.S., But if they're born in the reservation, which is not subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S., then they're still citizens. I don't get it. And by the way, I'm not opposed to citizenship for Native Americans or Indians. I'm all for it. But I think that the reservation idea is an anachronism that has uh, uh, essentially outspent its useful life.
Well, okay, before Obamacare became law, I remember reading multiple articles saying we already had three kinds of government health care: the VA, Medicare, and the Indian Health Service. And
Yeah.
in the Indian Health Service, they say never get sick past July because after
Because they
July,
run out of budget.
uh, so um, if they're on a reservation and they've got some shitty, bronze plan healthcare, I don't know. I mean, here in California, you can be declared Native American if you're like 164th, whatever tribe.
Oh, okay, I'm going.
Well, I've seen
That's it. I'm going to California.
all these pictures of white people with blonde hair, and they're like members of the whatever tribe, and
Too much.
there's 18 of them, and they're getting shitloads of money, and I don't know. I just think it's
Yeah. The Cherokees, says Donita, are so many we get nothing. Well, what do you mean you get nothing? You get a plot to bury yourself in Oklahoma. I have many friends buried in Oklahoma. Um, White people can build on Seneca land with a 99-year lease. Well, it's still Seneca land. You can buy a flat in London with a 99-year lease. They don't want non-natives any more than the Seneca people do. But
well. See,
anyway,
that's one of
those
those
are
things. You
yeah.
buy the land. Oh, 99-year lease, and you don't think about the future. Well, look at Hong Kong. The 99 years sure came and went fast, didn't it?
Mm. And how wonderful is it to spend, I don't know, $7 million on a flat in London with 20 years left on the lease?
Sure.
Essentially, you're renting the place for 20 years, paying in advance.
Hmm.
Uh, I as a buyer, I don't like it.
Well, I wouldn't live in London under any circumstances at this point.
Oh, I would. I would. I had fun last year. Much of London is untouched. And the parts that are, what we see in Twitter and all that, just are the parts I never went to anyway.
Yeah,
Because
but I
those
mean,
are the low class neighborhoods that were shit 40 years ago when the people inhabiting them were cockney. So,
yeah, but I wouldn't.
like Blind Io saying, stay north of the river. Don't go to Elephant and Castle if you're in London.
Well, I don't want to live in a country where I could go to jail for a tweet.
Ah, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But then again, there is only one country in America you can live in, and we're still having to defend that every day.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance,
Yes, yes.
and God knows we take our eye off the ball pretty regularly.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
And you know what I feel about J6, and I think that a bunch of people should have stayed in jail. But when you look at the number of people who went to jail for no fucking reason and
Also,
had
they
their
they went
lives
out.
destroyed,
They put all the power of the FBI into locating people who'd literally done nothing other than walk inside the building. And
how about walking outside the building?
they scrutinized videotape, like thousands of hours of videotape, and came after him 4 years later.
Yeah, and phone data.
Yep.
And
Long after.
people were put to jail because they were walking in a restricted area in Capitol Hill outside the building, except at the time it was not marked restricted.
Yeah. No, I mean,
They made it restricted ex post facto.
it's see, this is why I don't worry that much. We can get pretty crappy the way we did under Biden, but
Oh yeah,
our obituary has been written so many times, and we always bounce back. And you know, I go with Churchill. Americans always do the right thing after they've tried everything else, and I think it's true.
it is. It is. But that's what I was saying. If you wouldn't live in England because you wouldn't live in a country where you can go to jail for a tweet, I have news for you. There's only one country in the whole fucking world that you can live in. Because even though that might happen to you in America, we have a tendency to self-correct. But this is the only country where that will not happen to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Germany. It took a guy, a stand-up comedian, had to go to court because in Germany it was illegal to make fun of political leaders, and
Yeah,
he made a joke about Erdogan, and so he was arrested.
yeah. In most of Europe, by the way,
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine?
if you make a comment about Pedro Sanchez, that corrupt asshole president of Spain, if I did this in Spain,
In
I
Germany?
would I would be arrested tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. The Germans
Both
are
for calling him corrupt, slanderous, unless of course I can bring the receipts of his every act of corruption. And an asshole is an insult.
Mhm.
Oh, you know, they can go fuck themselves. I don't care. And incidentally, if somebody shows this shit in Spain and I go there next month, they can still arrest me.
Sure.
They're fucking crazy. And Pedro Sanchez is a corrupt asshole. There you go. Gavin tried to make it illegal. It was thrown out, so maybe we have a chance. We have more than a chance. We have more than a chance. And we have more than a Gavin. So we need to fight for it. We need to keep fighting for it and keep it because what we have in the US is very unique. And yes, it is in danger, and yes, you have to defend it every day, but at least we have it.
Well, okay. I saw something about a lot of rage that the Supreme Court didn't throw out some weapons ban from a state that begins with M. I can't remember. Was it Missouri, Maryland?
I think it was Mr.
And Kavanaugh wrote the reasoning, and basically he said that this stuff is coming at us piecemeal, and at some point we're going to be making an overall decision that deals with the whole country, and we're not going to make it over this particular case, but at some point we will. And
Yeah.
I understand it because if somebody is able to bring a case that has to do with the whole country, then they'll make a ruling that has to do with the whole country.
Yeah,
That
they don't want a hodgepodge
Yeah,
of jurisprudence, making things even more confusing.
yeah. I mean,
That's understandable, actually.
no, like you said, we wanted Supreme Court justices who followed the law. That's what they're doing, and it's tedious and it's annoying. The law is an ass, but the law is also the law. So you can't have it both ways. Just be
No,
happy that they're following the law.
that's what we did not want activist judges
Yep.
until we have non-activist justices, and then we want them to be as activists in our favor. Give me a fucking break. I'm very, very comfortable with the conservative judges. Yes, sometimes I don't agree, or I think I don't agree, and then in second thought, maybe I do. Uh, but it doesn't matter. I'm perfectly content that these are good people doing a good job and not being activists, and that's what I wanted.
There was just a 9-0 ruling. What was it?
Oh, there were several
Yeah,
um, lately, but some things are just too clear. There was one 9-0.
it was recently.
Yeah, slapping down Blasberg and telling him, we encourage the federal government to do whatever they can to bring this guy back. But now you can shove your injunction up your ass. Uh, Incidentally, he's going to so regret the fact that the Democrats defended him. While he's being fucked every half hour by half the prison population, which is a treatment reserved for the little pedophiles like him. Um, but I was going someplace else with this.
You were
Oh,
talking about activist judges
when
versus.
we're talking about activist judges and freedom of speech and First Amendment, the one thing Terry says, I'm sick and tired of this hate speech bullshit. It, I feel you, Terry, but I'm also sick and fucking tired of the hate crime bullshit. An Egyptian jihadist comes to the US. By the way, first, he applies for a visa during George Bush's term and he's denied. Think about that for a second. Then he applies again during Obama's term and he gets it. And then he stays beyond the date authorized in the visa, becomes illegal, and Biden says, no fucking problem, we'll give you a parole and a work permit and access to social services and money, and you can stay. So then he goes to Boulder and incinerates a dozen citizens because they're Jews. So far, so good.
Mhm.
While screaming death to the Jews, death to America, Allahu Akbar, and all that bullshit. And he is charged. He is arrested immediately. I cannot understand why there wasn't anybody with a gun in that park to take care of this asshole before he burned 12 people. But I guess Colorado is not what it used to be. And the son of a bitch is being charged. Do you think he's being charged with an act of terrorism resulting in death?
Let's see. He's facing 118 charges, but not terrorism.
Bingo. Hate crimes.
Let's see. Attempted first-degree murder with intent. Okay. And extreme indifference. Okay, I don't get that. Assault, use of incendiary device, crimes of violence, animal cruelty, not terrorism.
No. The one thing that is obvious and jumps at your face is the one they don't use.
Yeah.
And by the way, there is such a thing as terrorism, an act of terrorism resulting in death. And that one carries a life sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Not a life in prison sentence. I mean old Sparky. A death sentence. So why wasn't he charged with an act of terrorism resulting in death? By the way, each incinerated person is an individual act of terrorism.
Of course.
So why wasn't he charged? He was
Okay.
charged with a hate crime?
The feds have charged him with a hate crime as of now, but more charges are coming, almost certainly terrorism.
I hope so.
And it would be. No, I mean, okay, the FBI said immediately it was terrorism, And all these buttholes were on CNN saying that it was juvenile for the FBI to jump to the conclusion.
Jump to the conclusion.
And it's like, okay, he's an Arab screaming death to the Jews, and he's shooting a flamethrower at him, and it's not terrorism?
Do you need a map?
Well, they just, the police chief didn't want to say it was terrorism. I mean, I don't understand why. It would hurt the guy's feelings.
I don't get it, but I do hope if more charges are coming that he's charged with acts of terrorism resulting in death, and I hope he fries for it.
Well,
Um,
did you see some Afghan was pulled over, and he was just completely off his rocker, and he was just shrieking about everything, and then all of a sudden in the mid-sentence he just pulled out a gun and started firing at the cop. And so the cop on the other side of the car had absolutely ventilated him. I think he put 15 rounds into him.
Good.
But it was just that Middle Eastern hysteria, that Middle Eastern irrationality, like the okay, that I felt really bad.
Like the Mexican illegal irrationality in LA.
Well, I felt really bad. Here's this guy who burns all these people, and there's people there telling. There was one guy who wanted to go over and like smash the hell out of him, and he's being held back by everybody else. They've been set on fire, but they're still worried about the welfare of the terrorist, and he's raving.
That's sad.
Well, they're debating. They're having debates with him.
Yeah. That's sad. Suicidal empathy.
If I could have snuck up on the guy and bashed him in the back of the head, I would have. And then, he was holding two Molotov cocktails or something. So I would have smashed him in the back of the head and said, look, I didn't know if he was going to throw any more bombs.
Yeah.
He wanted to fight, and I gave it to him.
Yeah, if he happens to fall on the Molotov cocktails and burn to a crisp, what can I tell you? Do you have any marshmallows?
No, it's really bad. This is why it's really excellent that Israel is doing what it's doing, because I never thought they had it in them to take care of this problem once and for all. And, they obviously do.
I knew it the moment I saw the images of October 7th. And I told you, they're going to do it because they have no other choice.
Well, I hoped that they would do it. We've only learned after Biden left how much Biden was holding back the Israelis.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, they dropped 52,000-pound bombs through the same hole outside or under the European hospital, and whatever newspaper it was published the video of the guy riding the debris, horizontally and looking like a surfer. And I'm sorry, I thought it was amusing. Okay, I noticed something in that video. An entire crowd of people run past. 2 small children, 1 man, old man, 1 woman, and all the other dozens were young military-age males, all running away from the hospital. Military-age males, 1 old man, 2 small children, and 1 woman.
Yep.
I'm assuming she was a woman. She was wearing a niqab, but she was also wearing pants under her niqab.
Don't assume too much.
Well,
Don't assume too much. They do it all the time.
Every single person there, with the exception of those four, was a military age male and on the very, very young side. So that's why I know that the Israelis said, we didn't interfere with the function of the hospital.
I
The
don't care.
Palestinians,
I would have leveled the fucking place.
well, the Palestinians are interfering with the function of all their hospitals.
And how about Alaya, the other hospital? Every fucking hospital is a cover
Hmm?
for Hamas military operations. Don't apologize. Blow them. The world is, at large is not going to love or hate Israel based on this.
Well, that's the thing.
Those who already hate Israel already do. And there's nothing Israel can do to change their minds. They're fucking anti Semites. They hate the Jews. They want Palestinian Arabs or whoever else to just wipe them off the earth. And when they're done there, they can come over here and finish the job, type of
Well,
thing.
this is the thing that, let's say, God forbid, the Arabs rose up and wiped out Israel. That would be the beginning. That wouldn't be the end.
Yes. And I think at this point, after many, many, many years of buying into the land for peace theory and the Oslo Accord and all that, fuck all of this. It doesn't work. You cannot negotiate with terrorists. Eliminate them. Do what you need to do. And those who don't like it will eventually die of old age. And fuck them.
Well, Hamas said the people running the terrorists, the what is it all something martyrs brigades. Um,
Al-Aqsa.
they said
Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade.
they said we're going to kill all the Israelis. Their political leaders were saying, oh well, maybe we can negotiate this, that, or the other, and Sinwar the whole time was saying we're going to kill them all.
Yeah. Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade it became known with an attack of, over the Temple Mount to derail the Oslo Accords. Just as the creation of the Palestinian state was imminent in the West Bank and everything was okay, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade was created for the sole purpose of derailing the agreements. They don't want peace. They don't want a state. They don't want territory. They want to kill Jews. And they want a Palestinian state where Israel is. And frankly, fuck them all. I don't care. And since you're not going to win any sympathy contest in the world, worry not about it. Is there a hospital on top of a military command? Destroy the hospital and the military command. Period. What are they going to do? Indict you in the international criminal court? They already did
Yeah,
for no reason whatsoever.
and big deal. Like Netanyahu's ever going to go to Western Europe.
No, as long as there is any chance that these fucking imbeciles will actually follow the dictates of an illegitimate court. And by the way, the case was brought by South Africa that is committing genocide against its own farmers.
Yeah, but we're not supposed to talk about that because they're white people.
Yeah, ooh, dude. That's it. That's what the last 9-0 Supreme Court was against. They call it reverse racism. I think it's pure fucking racism, where a woman was suing because she was, uh, um, oh God, discriminated against for being white
Mm,
in search for a job. I believe it was. She
mm.
applied for a job and she didn't get it because she was white. And it turns out that is discrimination, that is racism, and 920 the Supreme Court decided that affirmative action is fucking racist and it shouldn't exist.
Sure.
Mhm. It took him too many years to figure that one out, but eventually, like you said, we do everything wrong until we figure it out. I
Well, don't get
remember
me
in the
wrong.
90s, I
Uh-huh.
remember in the 90s when Jeb Bush terminated affirmative action in Florida. I think it was 94, give or take a year. And I remember being at the theater in downtown Miami where he did so in front of all of 600 people. And when he came onto the stage, almost the entire audience were people from black organizations. And I thought they were going to eat him alive, lynch him. It didn't look pretty. And he spent an hour and a half explaining to these folks why affirmative action was wrong. And then he declared that he was canceling affirmative action in Florida. And these people who were ready to punch him in the face when he came in gave him a 20-minute standing ovation. Jeb Bush, before he lost it, was an incredible politician.
Mhm.
Then he lost it. I don't know why.
Yeah, the Bushes have no staying power. Um, you have someone like Trump. I saw a clip of him on it had to be Air Force One. He was wearing a white baseball cap, "Make America Great Again." Just, I think they call it a gaggle, where he just talks to them in the aisle of the
Yep,
plane, whatever.
a
You never
press
know that
gaggle.
this. You never know that this guy is almost 80 years old and he gets 4 hours of sleep a night. Um,
Yep.
he's like perfectly fine, and it's just really amazing. But the Bushes, okay. What I discovered during the Trump era is that people are very easily brainwashed by outside forces, but they can also brainwash themselves.
Yeah.
And it's I would say that you can notice it the most in watching police body cam videos. You can watch the progression of the brainwashing. When I first started watching body cam videos a couple of years ago, young women started saying things like, "Don't, I want to go home." And then suddenly everyone was doing it. I noticed one person doing it, and then everyone was doing it. Then now, currently, when the cop handcuffs you, you scream, "You're hurting me." I used to watch the series Cops when it first started 40 years ago. You
Yeah.
never heard anyone say that.
It's too wimpy.
Yeah, "You're hurting me." You see big, tough, tattooed grown men. "You're hurting me." And these people
That's the
aren't,
idea.
they're not watching cop videos to memorize it. All this stuff is going into their brains without them knowing it,
Or organically.
organically. And the uniformity of speech has always, okay, today, currently, if somebody has a meltdown, you say they're crashing out. I don't ever use slang. I've never used slang in my life because slang is dated, and it has a short half life. And but everybody says it. People my age, "Oh, he's crashing out." And then suddenly it becomes unfashionable to say crashing out, and you're some dork for saying it.
Mm.
So
Remember when everybody was saying cool?
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. And I was looking at it, has nothing to do with temperature.
Well, also, okay, there was a period a few years ago where everyone was saying that's not cool. Like someone would punch a woman in the face and they say, that's not cool. And the apex of it was a security guard at a 7-Eleven was attacked by a guy with a knife, and he shot the guy to death. And this woman watching said to the security guard, that's not cool. I thought, okay, you dumb idiot. You're applying this stupid faddish face to something.
Being stabbed by the asshole probably is.
Well, also, I mean, it's not a question of being cool or not. It's that's horrible, or oh my God, I can't believe what I just saw. No, hey, that's not cool. She heard it and she instantly sucked it up like a sponge. And people become these weird entities who have no individual thoughts whatsoever. They have no ability to think for themselves.
Just remember that dried up sponges devoid of content are the ones that will most likely suck in the novelties.
Yeah.
They just absorb better than, say, a nice sponge, well used, filled with uh, 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 water or any other content for that matter. These are empty brains. These people
Well,
go through lives not knowing exactly how or why.
my brother in New York, before Trump was elected the first time, he told me that Trump was the most corrupt person in the history of the United States. They said, give me an example of his corruption. Dead silence. I said, I asked you a question. Give me an example of his corruption. He said, well, if you don't know, I'm not here to teach you.
Right.
I said, I'm not asking you to teach me. I'm asking you to back up your statement. You said Trump is the most corrupt person in the history of the United States. Give me one example of his corruption. Well, again, it's not my job. Google it. And it's like, oh, okay, so you just repeated that because you heard somebody else say it and you thought it sounded good, so you're saying it. And you're an idiot. I didn't call him that. But he hasn't spoken to me since 2019 because
you lucky son of a bitch.
He called me up in a rage and he said that he had COVID, but he couldn't get a test because Trump was prohibiting COVID tests. I said, then how do you know you have COVID? And there was this really long pause. He said, well, it's a mild case. And I said, again, if you haven't been tested for COVID, how do you know you have COVID? Well, try. And that was the last time I spoke to him. He
Right. But in order to say that he was a victim of Trump's refusal, which by the way, I don't know where the fuck he got this idea.
Exactly.
But to be a victim of Trump's refusal to allow COVID tests, he had to have COVID so he could complain. Now,
that means he had to be tested to have COVID.
which of course he couldn't be tested, but he needed to have it. So at this moment, they tilt. It's like when you shake a pinball machine in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
they go,
No, it's there was no
does not compute.
there was no federal, state, or local governmental body in the United States that prohibited COVID tests. There was none. None.
Not ever.
The CDC, he and I went on the computer. I said, if you're at your computer, look, we'll go to the CDC. The CDC recommended that hospitals give COVID tests, but it was up to the hospital. I said, did you go to the hospital? Long silence. So it's just like, I felt like calling him a nitwit and telling him he was wasting my time. But after I disemboweled him, he never spoke to me again. So it's been 6 years and he never spoke to me again.
I consider that a resounding success on your part.
I don't miss him because
How can you miss a nitwit?
he brought this obese folk singer fucker to our house when my parents are still alive. And this guy did nothing but criticize Republicanism, knowing goddamn well that my parents are Republicans. And finally, I couldn't take it, so I left. And my brother Tim stayed. And the parents were going to cook dinner, and they decided, fuck him. So they just went to Burger King, and he
Right.
wanted 2 Whoppers with cheese. And my brother said he inhaled them. He ate each one in like 2.5 seconds. And I remember I came back. He called me and said he's about to leave. So I came back to like shake his hand. And he was just this obnoxious fatso. And he had like this long curly blonde hair that was his pride and joy, with this body. And he couldn't sing. He'd written a song about St. Christopher that he would sing. And he couldn't sing. He had to sing really high, so he'd sing with his head held back. And he had the goddamn nerve to come to my parents' house and do nothing but criticize Republicanism. And they were too polite to say, "You fat bastard, get out of my house."
Get the fuck out of here.
But they wouldn't have wanted me to confront the guy either. So they just sat there and took it. But that really bugged me. How could you go to an elderly couple's house? They invite you over, and all you do is rip them.
I don't, listen, I go to many an elderly couple home, friends of my mother, people in the building, former neighbors of mine, and they're Democrats,
Mhm.
rabid fucking Democrats, and they sing me the praises of Obama, who was the second coming of the Messiah, and I never argue with them. Number one, when I go there, I know where I'm going.
Mhm.
I'm not being ambushed. I'm not. I have no right to be surprised. I just let them say whatever the fuck they want to say. They're in their late 80s. They're gonna be goners sooner rather than later. They're fairly good people, and when we discuss other things like traveling in Italy or food, I actually enjoy myself, and that's it. I don't go, number one, to other people's houses to insult them. Now, when they come to my house, they better not start,
Yeah,
because I'll throw
exactly.
them out.
Yeah. Well, see,
In your house, you say whatever the fuck you want, and if I went there, I'll put up with it. But
yeah.
if you're coming to my house, do not offend me, or I really don't know whether your head or your ass is gonna hit the sidewalk first.
Well, people of our parents' generation, if my parents were still alive, they'd be 96.
Hmm.
My parents were different, but there was a kind of, what would you call it? A lot of people of our parents' generation, when they got old, they lost a lot of their mojo. They became sort of fearful. You know what I mean? They like you and I, if we live to be in our 90s, we're going to be the same as we are today.
I'm gonna be punching from my deathbed.
Yeah, it's
By the way, my parents are like that. They didn't weaken either.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I don't feel any different at 63 than I did when I was in kindergarten. My brain is different, but I'm the same guy, and I don't. I had these 2 people
Re-
come to my front door.
remember these, Thomas? Hold
Oh
on.
yeah, that's your dad.
That's my dad when we were doing the show,
Yep,
and to the very last, he was encouraging and doing and discussing politics and geography and
yeah.
whatever the fuck you want. He never gave up.
Well, nobody would know he was as old as he was in that picture. He looked like a guy in his late 50s or early 60s,
Yeah,
and he was past.
we're 87 at that picture.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And, and 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 if it wasn't for a rare form of cancer, he would have made it to 95 in the same shape.
sure. A couple of days ago, these two 40-ish women came to my house, and I have a security gate that the people on the porch cannot see into the house in the daytime. It's got the
Mhm.
little dots punched in
Right.
the steel, and they asked me how I was, and I said I'm fine. What are you selling? Oh, we're not selling anything, but we were just wondering. We're working in the neighborhood, and we were just wondering if you needed, just some errands run or some things done inside your house, and it was just like, yeah, sure, why not? They'd seen a guy with a white beard coming in and out of his car,
Mhm.
and so they figured that I was a sucker, and I was going to open the door and go, oh, thank you, young ladies, come in, you know. How about you take my car down to the bank, and here I'll give you my account number. And it was just
Oh,
like,
I have a better idea. What would happen if you show up with a shotgun?
well, this is the
And I
thing.
said, now that you mention it, I'm a hunter, but I don't have anything to hunt here. Would you please be my prey? I'll count to 10 and start going after you.
Well, a similar couple came to my brother's Tim house in Vegas, and it was at 1:30 in the morning, and they introduced themselves and asked if he needed any errands done, and he said, I'll give you 3 seconds to get off my porch before I open fire.
Right.
And he said he's never seen two people run faster. And I didn't do that, but I said it took me 3 times. I said, I'm good. So have a nice day. No, I'm good. Have a nice day. They were pretty adamant. And I just wondered, how often do they get old people who open the door and say, oh, isn't that wonderful? Could you come in? Sit down. I'll get you coffee. Let's
No,
talk.
be, before you open the door, you go
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they can hear it.
Yeah.
Eh? And then you have a hand behind you. I don't care if you're scratching your ass or holding a banana. But you open the door and you let them see your hand behind your back, and then you suggest amicably that it would be better for their health if they started running out of there now.
Yeah.
I'll count to six.
Well,
And
I think it's because two 40-ish women did a home invasion on my parents, and um, it was a bloody miracle that my father wasn't in the house. My brother Tim went in. He pulled one out by the arm. Then he went back in. Then he found the other hiding in one of the corners and pulled her out. And I've never been angrier in my life. I honestly wanted to finish them off on the spot, and I couldn't believe that people, like, here it was reality. People actually do that. They commit
yeah,
home invasions on old people. And they were caught. We gave their license plate to the cops, and the cops caught them. And they've been hitting the houses of old people all along, stealing their medication, stealing their
right.
checkbooks, stealing their credit cards.
A nice source of oxycodone for many.
Yep.
Mhm. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
last thing, because we are approaching, because somebody talked about gold standard idiot ass souls multiplying like ants. And it reminded me that we haven't said a word about the big beautiful bill.
Oh, you're right.
And I wanted to say what's in my gut because I'm sick and tired of listening to
Yeah,
bullshit
yeah. Go
about
ahead.
this.
Go ahead.
And if people are opposed to funding the wall, funding our military, funding border patrol, and whatever is necessary to keep us secure, they can go fuck themselves.
And also
If people,
cutting.
oh no, I'm going there. Even though the bill has 400 billion for building the wall, funding border patrol and control of the borders and the military, there is a net cut of discretionary spending of 1.7 trillion. But we're spending 400 billion, so we end up with a 1.3 trillion actually saved. If anybody thinks that cutting 1.3 trillion out of discretionary spending is a bad thing, they can go fuck themselves. The other provision of the bill has to do with raising uh,
Debt limit,
the debt ceiling.
debt ceiling.
Well, imbeciles, I think he's not an imbecile, I think he's an asshole like Rand Paul, say that that needs to be dealt with in a separate bill. What he's actually saying is you have to give Schumer the opportunity to extort whatever the fuck he wants out of you in order to avoid a cessation of payments. Go fuck yourself. Just get it done, get it as high as you possibly fucking can, and don't bug me with this shit for a while. And if you want the US government to raise taxes for everybody in America to the tune of another 4 trillion in taxes next year, go fuck yourself. Can you imagine what would happen to this country if
Mhm.
the Trump tax cuts are allowed to expire
Mhm.
and everybody's taxes go up 60%? What would happen to the economy? What would happen to the consumer? So if you want to destroy the economy, be my guest and go fuck yourself. But if you want to keep the tax cuts and avoid a major disaster next year, then you have nothing to criticize in the bill. The only reason, by the way, since I just said that the bill has a net cut of $1.3 trillion in expenditures, why are people saying that it increases the debt? It doesn't. But apparently, for some assholes, not doubling the taxes you pay increases the debt.
Mhm.
Amazing how that works, don't you think?
Mhm.
So, since the bill does not raise taxes, it increases the debt. Bullshit. Last week, the same CBO came up with the report that the net result of tariffs next year is going to be 2.3 trillion added to the treasury.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're cutting 1.3 trillion in taxes. We're adding 2.3 trillion to the treasury. We're keeping the tax cuts and people complain. They can go fuck themselves.
Well,
I've really had it with this shit.
we've got over 10 trillion pledged investments coming.
Yes,
Um,
yes. And remember when I told you that by June eggs were gonna be $2 a dozen again?
mhm.
I wasn't a fucking genius of futurology. It
No.
was simple, and I explained to people. It takes 4 months from fertilized egg to egg laying hen. Add 2 more months because we have to replace millions of fucking hens, and you cannot do it all at once. And by June, we're gonna be back to normal, and eggs are gonna be a couple of bucks per dozen. And now everybody's surprised that the price of eggs has fallen.
Well, see, hysteria is the new norm. Think of all the catastrophes that we were warned against that never happened.
Mm.
You know, starting with the new ice age. You know, the new ice age. I remember that
Oh
from
God.
1970.
Miami, Florida is underwater, don't you know?
Miami, Florida is underwater.
The new ice age, by the way, is 1978. when
Mhm.
Leonard Nimoy came up with the film warning of the incoming ice age.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And
The
before that,
the hole in the ozone layer.
the hole in the
We're
ozone
all gonna
layer.
fry.
Yep.
By 1980, we're gonna be out of food and eating each other. The population bomb.
Yep.
Um,
Y2K.
Y2K was my favorite.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with this one.
I
So,
was no. I was
yeah,
just going to say I was emailing my brother in Holland when it turned midnight for him. And I said, "Okay, our airplane's falling out of the sky?" And he said, "Not that I see." I said, "So how are you feeling? Is your computer blowing up?" "No, the computer is running fine. Um, Nothing's happening." Oh! I just heard some keep some celebratory. There was a pause where everybody was waiting with their breath, hold their deep
right.
breath, and nothing happened.
Now,
It's
how about the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012?
Did you ever see the movie 2012?
No,
Oh, holy
I
shit!
couldn't bring myself to.
It was enormous caverns opening up in the earth and everything falling in and just I mean the earth. I don't even remember how it ended. I just watched uh, uh, whatever stupid disasters they had depicted.
Yep.
But boy, yeah, the Mayan calendar and all this stuff, it
No,
comes and
and,
goes.
and
And
and now the latest one is the debt.
yeah, the debt. We're all going to die.
Every 10 years they come up with the same shit.
Mm,
The debt is at roughly the same levels it was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Yes, it's much higher nominally, but inflation is such a beautiful thing. Everything doubles up every 10 years or so. So we pay 4 times as much for cars, 4 times as much for houses, 4 times as much for gas, and the debt is 4 times as much. It has nothing to do. In the meantime, we have one of the lowest ratios of debt to GDP in the industrial world. Of course, a broken fucking country with no GDP and no debt is going to have a smaller ratio. But when you compare the US, the debt to GDP ratio is less than half that Japan's, considerably less than half. It's maybe two-thirds that of Belgium or Holland or Germany, half that of Spain or Italy or Greece. So maybe people can, and by the way, and unless all of those countries, we don't have to go and get currency to pay off our debt because our entire debt is internal. All we owe is US dollars and we print the fuckers. So
see,
maybe people can cut it out with this shit.
yeah, the national debt as a percentage of the GDP was the highest it ever was in 1945. Uh,
Right at the end of World War II makes sense because we spend a lot of money and produce very little.
yeah, and look what happened.
And what followed in the 10 years after 1945, we had the biggest fucking expansion,
Yep.
and then the debt went up again in the 70s after the oil crisis. And what followed? The expansion of the 80s
Mhm.
and 90s. So, people, the economy is cyclical. Don't bust my balls. And the fact that we print the medium of payment, that all we do when a bond becomes due is pay off with another bond, because that's what a dollar bill is. Give me a fucking break. I can't stand this shit. Now, if we were Brazil with a humongous debt in dollars, and we need to pay a portion of that debt that matures, we need to actually get the physical US dollars to make that payment. but we don't print them. So the Brazilians have to have a fire sale, sell their asses, have their women fuck tourists, whatever they can to get US dollars so they can pay. We don't have that fucking problem. Stop comparing the US to other countries. It's unique in its situation. And everybody who wants to fuck us somehow will raise the specter of the debt to force you into not spending enough money for the wall or for the military or for the things that we actually need to spend on if we want to have a country 10 years from now.
Romania's Ceausescu decided he needed to pay off the national debt entirely. It was $16 billion.
Pocket change.
And he did exactly what you said. He sold all of the country's assets except for his own possessions, and whatever food that was raised by all the farmers was confiscated and sold off, shipped off. So what overthrew Ceausescu was his obsession with paying off the national debt. Essentially, he was forcing. I think Romanians had 1 hour of electricity per day.
Yep.
At that point, and it was shut off the whole rest of the time. I mean, they rioted. They started rioting because they had no food, they had no electricity, they had no heat, they had no water, they had nothing, and it was because he wanted to pay off the national debt.
It's stupid. And by the way, paying off the national debt makes no sense.
No.
A large chunk of our national debt is bonds purchased by the Federal Reserve
Mm-hmm.
or the Social Security Trust Fund. We are paying interest to ourselves, you fucking idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but the payment of interest is so huge, it's going into the Medicare Trust Fund, you moron! It's not like we're burning the bills in the middle of the Atlantic. The last thing that I want to say, because as you can see, I get a little emotional when I think of the idiocies I have to listen to every day. And maybe I should save some for next week, but people know that they can ask me on yapping and other things. There is about $400 to $500 trillion in assets owned by the federal government. 80% of the land in Nevada is owned by the federal government. For instance, there are huge tracts of land in California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico that are worth a pretty penny with minerals of every kind owned by the federal government. The federal government can raise 30 trillion overnight. Trump just got 10 trillion for investment in America with nothing but hot air and a cup of coffee. So it's about time that people stop comparing the United States with an indebted taxi driver. This is not it. And with that, I'm done with this subject.
Currently, foreign countries own about 23% of the U.S. national debt, which is down from 50% during the it was 20 over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Foreign ownership of the debt has gone up to at least 50%. So we're doing pretty good. China owns about 7% of our debt.
No, much less than that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, 700 billion approximately today. They've been selling like crazy because they
Oh,
need
okay.
money. They need the money. They're capitalizing. They're selling bonds at a loss. They're
Hmm.
capitalizing because they need to keep their banks operating. At
Hmm.
this rate, in about a year, they're going to be zero reserves, zero American bonds, zero banks. But what people don't understand are the bonds held by China come to maturity. China comes back and says, hey, it's maturity day, you need to pay me. Sure, here's dollar bills in exchange. How is that a problem?
Yeah, they'll have to spend them here.
How is that a problem? I don't get it. But people don't know anything about debt, they know anything about currency, and they keep talking about this shit. And unscrupulous assholes will use this as political ramming devices
Of
to
course.
scare people into doing whatever the fuck they want. But anyway, so that's the last I wanted to say because I wanted to make sure that at least we get the conversation going. Um, and I'm every now and then I do check YouTube, but frankly, as lively and interesting as the conversation is on the chat in Odyssey, is the conversation in YouTube banal and cretinous. What can I say? I don't know what's wrong with these people. I'll tell you later because I'm not going to give them the satisfaction. Um, Things aren't going so good in China or anywhere else, not that I think of it. Now, look at the graph of a median home price versus median family income. Nothing much has changed. Oh, but that house was worth $10,000 in 1950 in Miami, and now it's worth 360,000. Yeah, but in 1950 in Miami, if you were making $100 a week, you were rich.
Yeah,
And
this house
and in
is a
Miami today, right?
this house is
1913.
a Sears mail order house from 1913, and
Yeah,
I think it probably costs like $1,200 or something
yeah.
in 1913. But the guy who bought it had an
Was making.
annual income of like $900 or something.
Oh, well, that was a good income at that time.
That was a good income. Now,
So and in 1928, a new Ford Model A was $450.
which was a hell of a lot in 1928.
It was a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
When my great grandfather paid for his initiation into the Masonic Lodge, he paid with $2 silver.
Mm-hmm.
A year's salary for a laborer was
You know, there
one
was a.
silver.
Have you heard of the Philadelphia experiment? The Philadelphia experiment. The actual Philadelphia experiment was an attempt in World War II to make a destroyer radar invisible, and the rumor is that the aircraft or the destroyer became literally invisible, and then when it reappeared, members of the crew were embedded in the steel decks and everything. So
Mm.
I saw a movie where the destroyer, during that period that it was invisible in 1942 or 3 or whatever it was, it actually appeared on dry land in this city, and the only man aboard was the commander, and he had no idea. He's from 1943, so the movie was made in, I don't know, 2018 or something. So he climbs down from the ship and he's wandering through the city, and he goes into this cafeteria and he asks for a cup of coffee, and he drinks his coffee and collects himself. Then he goes up and he goes, "How much do I owe you?" And she goes, $3. He goes, $3 for a cup of coffee? Because he's from 1943 and
Right.
it was like 5 cents or something.
If
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I'm old, but not that old. Uh, a Coke and a hot dog at Coney Island for 30 cents.
Yeah.
30 cents.
Yeah.
If, if you had brought me from 1980 directly to today, and they want to charge me $3.50 for the hot dog alone, and
Yeah.
another $3 for the glass of Coke,
Yeah.
it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I,
No, I
I can
remember.
imagine. But that's the thing. See, in 1980, you could buy an apartment in Manhattan for 60 grand.
Yeah.
You people earned $200 to $300 a week in a base salary type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Flight attendants made about 1,200 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and it was considered a good salary.
Oh, yeah.
My Subaru, brand new, the last time I bought a brand new car was 6,800,
Mm-hmm.
and the debt was one fourth what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, people, but that is par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
The Philadelphia Experiment, by the way, that was also a very good jazz album. I was right. Uh, not the one, not the experiment you were talking about. So anyway, anything else that we left?
Nope. I'm done.
Okay. In that case, people, just a last reminder on the way out. Support makes things happen. We have no support from anybody. No government wants us. The Qataris told us to go fuck ourselves. USAID was just about to give us money, but alas, they're no more. And we don't have advertising or anything of the sort. All we have is your support. So please uh, do drop a coin every now and then. And there are two easy ways of doing it. One, become a subscriber in at the Brother Lie in Twitter. I'm not telling you to subscribe to this guy over there because he's not monetizing and we cannot do it yet. So at the Brother Lie, the money's gonna come to keep us going. And the other way is to go to quadroom.com/support us. And there you can drop not a fixed $5 amount as in the subscription for um X, but you can drop any amount you want, either in a single payment or in a monthly installment. And it would be very much appreciated and it will help us continue to get to you with these and other programs and the forum, which is also sustained from the same fund. And now that I have shamelessly asked you for money, come in, don't be stingy. Drop a buck. A cup of coffee for crying out fucking loud is more than the $5 that would help us keep this. So buy us a cup of coffee per month. Don't be. Jeez. Um, I remember when I was a kid, we spoke of a worn elbow for people who refuse to pay. The guys who, when you went to a bar or something, would never pick up the bill.
Mm-hmm.
They had worn elbows. So every now and then, buy us a cup of coffee. It's not a big deal. And having said all of that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Quad Meet, where people can come on screen and have a lively discussion. And Tuesday for the um, VIP room. And now we have on Wednesdays, 9:30 p.m. And of course, Thomas, you're more than welcome to crash the party. Spaces for subscribers only. so we can have a decent conversation and everybody can talk over each other, and maybe learn something from one another. So, having said all of that, uh, number two, like the worn elbow word of the day. No, the word of the day was coming now because this is the moment when I ask Thomas, do you have a last word for us?
Alluvian.
Alluvian! Excellent. Geologists will appreciate this. Thank you. Live long and prosper, my friend.